Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Weekly Spinner Rack. I'm your host, Chris. This is going to be a great show. What kind of a show is this? It's a show where we talk about comic books, a weekly show where we look at the latest comic books that came out. We talk about the latest comic book news. I've got some amazing stuff to talk about tonight. When you've got guys like John Byrne and Daniel Warren Johnson in the news, you just know that it's going to be fun, that there's fun bits of comic book news, juicy stuff to bite into, sink our teeth into, and chat, because there is a live chat with us today, even if you're watching this later. I appreciate you guys watching. Very cool week for comics. A few of them I really enjoyed. I'm just going to start out saying Absolute Batman issue 10 was definitely my cup of tea. This is body horror Batman. That's what I'm going to call it, body horror Batman. But I think Dragotta and Snyder have a banger of an issue. There's also a few sort of new #1 issues that I tried out, sort of funny horror, Dredd the Hall H, like horror comedy based on Comic-Con, the new Image series Ghost Pepper, the newest Godzilla Marvel crossover. I also got my digital copy of Post Malone's new comic book, Big Rig. But the physical copy, I guess, is supposed to arrive later today. I didn't get it in time for the show, but I did read it because they also sent me a digital version. Oh, look at that. I got a kitty guest star. Hey, what'd you say? You're going to go hide. Okay. There's a kitty condo over there that they like to play on. Let's see. There's just a bunch of great stuff to talk about. And I do have a little bit of a sketch. It might be a long show, but I've got the 4th Fast and Furious chick tract mapped out. I think I'll do at least 5 ultimately, but tonight would be number 4 for that. Is there anything else to sort of talk about in terms of setting up what kind of an amazing show it is tonight? No, not really. It's just going to be comic book news, reviews, and a little bit of drawing to sort of cool down at the end. Hey, Dave, the rent at the kitty condo is apparently free. You just have to be a cat and you get to live there. So thank you all for being here. And let's go ahead and get into the news of the week.
We're sitting on top of the story of the century here.
Put an ad on the front page. Cash money for a picture of Spider-Man. He doesn't want to be famous, and I'll make him infamous.
Hi guys, this is April O'Neil from Channel 6 News, and I am here in beautiful New York City.
And I'm also here to report the news. This is going to be fun, folks. I promise. So, what do we start off with? Well, of course, a really fun thumbnail, but that's really mostly Mr. Daniel Warren Johnson having some fun. We'll talk about that bit in a little bit. I'm going to ramp up to some of the more fun pieces. Got all sorts of weird stuff sprinkled throughout. It's going to be a big show, so let's get to it. The Penguin. Pretty awesome crime show, in my opinion. I got to start saying more confident. You guys need somebody with a strong, confident voice, like Harry Carey. Hey, everybody. Did you hear about this new Penguin? I hear he waddles really good. Nobody will remember Harry Carey. If anything, you probably just remember Will Ferrell's Harry Carey impression. But the Penguin, I thought, was honestly a pretty darn good show. Was it super comic booky? Not really. Was it true to the character? Yeah, I would say it was. And it was a cool crime show. It didn't overstay its welcome either. So what happened? Well, this week, the Emmy nominations for Best Television went out, and the Penguin racked up 24 nominations. It's pretty high, just to be clear. Pretty high. Just to compare it to other comic book shows that have done well, Watchmen holds the record, actually. They got 26 nominations back in 2019. WandaVision also earned 23 back in 2021. So those are some of the higher ones, but the Penguin's up there. Let's see. Have you ever considered making a tier list for comic book movies? Oh, man. You have to keep narrowing it down. Thank you, first of all, for the super chat. I really appreciate that. In fact, yeah, I really need it right now. But I won't get into that. But I benefit from it right now. Thank you so much for the support. Might have to sell some art today or tomorrow. The thing is, I could probably list over maybe up to 200 comic book movies these days. And because, it's not just the Marvel and DC stuff, right? I mean, you have to get some obscure ones. Like, does anyone remember Virus based on the Dark Horse comic book? Or the fact that, Persepolis or Road to Perdition, Ghost World, Friday Foster, there's so many movies that you could start listing. It would be very hard to do a tier list unless I narrowed it down, but it would be fun. It could be fun. So I'll think about it. Yeah, you guys are listing some of the ones that people don't always think about. Bloodshot, Time Cop, right? There's so many that people wouldn't think of, but they are comic book movies, in my opinion. And then do I go into comic strips? Because I think that those are basically comic books, So do I count The Phantom? Do I count something like G.I. Joe? I don't know. It's something to think about. Time Cop. I was just saying Scott Pilgrim, but yeah, Time Cop was a comic. That was a Dark Horse comic. Dark Horse had this era where they had The Mask was probably its biggest hit. It was. And Time Cop was up there, but there was also Virus and Barbed Wire. So they had this little block in the mid 90s where they did all right. Oh, American Splendor is a really good one. And then what about documentaries? Stuff like Crumb. Is that a comic book movie? Annie? From Hell? Absolutely. So we'll get there. Do we count Guyver as a manga? Exactly. Do I start counting movies like Dylan Dog that are based on foreign comics? Because that would open the doors to all the anime movies and just adaptations of manga. It could be a crazy list. Is it Two Guns or was it? Yeah, Two Guns with Denzel and Mark Wahlberg. That was an adaptation. Bulletproof Monk. That's a Michael Ivan Oeming comic. So, yeah. All right, I'll go back to this news. Colin Farrell, I just wanted to point out, was nominated for Best Actor, and he's already won that award at the SAG Awards, Golden Globes, and Critics' Choice. So he would be the odds-on favorite, I meant to say. It's a pretty cool performance. I almost stuttered that out. What a host. I need a little bit more coffee. But we'll see. But I just would say, hey, it's a damn good show. If you haven't checked it out, don't expect it to have lots of sort of superpowers and sci-fi stuff. It is a crime show. But it's cool. It's damn cool. What else? As long as I'm on DC stuff, I'll talk about Gotham Academy returning. We'll go from one Batman-related project to another. October 1st, Gotham Academy is going to return, which has proven very popular with the young adult readers for original comics. And it's got the original creative team. Brendan Fletcher, Carl Kerschel, Becky Cloonan. Everybody likes Becky Cloonan, I hope. She's amazing. And that's a story set at Gotham City's most prestigious of prep schools. It's just a way to look at the characters of Bruce Wayne and what's Killer Croc's name? Like Waylon something. I can't remember all of a sudden. But all the Gotham City weirdos. But what if they were teenagers going to the same school? It's a cool idea. Yeah, I know you're a fan. I am too. She's great. This is going to be a 6-issue series with the main character being Olive Silverlock. She's a she's a shy girl from the Narrows, which is canonically one of the rougher parts of Gotham. Waylon Jones. Thank you, everybody. I kept thinking Waylon Jennings, but isn't that a singer? So I was like, well, I better not say that. I don't want to make a mistake. Oh my God. Can you imagine if you guys were watching a show about comic book news and I said something that was wrong? Like, what if I claimed the movie Red was a comic book movie. You know, the one with Bruce Willis. Oh, wait, it is! Okay. Anyway, this series began 11 years ago now, and has continued to sell really well as trades. They've released them as issues, but then they come out as trades. This is the kind of thing that you will sometimes see at Target and Walmart in the comics section where they've got, Guts and Smile by Raina Telgemeier and Dogman and stuff. They'll often have Gotham Academy. And I respect that. I respect that because it brings new readers in. So I think it's a totally valid interpretation. I respect the artists and writers here. It's very cool. That's true. Waylon Jennings was one of the highwaymen. Johnny Cash, Waylon Jennings, Chris Christopherson, and who was the fourth one? Oh, it was also somebody pretty cool. It's not coming to me. Yeah, the highwaymen were cool. All right, moving on. Absolute. DC's expanding Absolute a little bit. Not humongous. Nothing to get too scared. Willie Nelson. Thank you, sister. That's what you're there for. That's what you're there for. Yeah, I loved Waylon Jennings on Dukes of Hazzard. He'd be like, well, them boys sure got themselves in a pickle of a dickle this time. Tune on back after these commercials and we'll see if they can get out of this peanut butter jam. It's always stuff like that. Nice to see you here, Jeannie. All right, so what am I talking about with Absolute? Well, it's the 1-year anniversary this October. Actually, October will be the 13th issue of Absolute Batman and Wonder Woman, right? And then Superman would be issue 12, but basically the 1-year anniversary. And they're going to have 2 one-shots. That's what I'm talking about by expanding it. The first is called Absolute Evil, written by Al Ewing, who I generally think is pretty awesome. Art and main cover by Giuseppe Camuncoli and Stefano Nessi. And it says it features villains teaming up. And they list, this is from DC in their press release, they list Ra's al Ghul, Veronica Cale, Hector Hammond, Eleanor Thawne, and Joker. I don't think we've met any of them yet, have we? We've had like hints, but I don't think we've met any of them. The only thing I wanted to point out is that's a list of 5 villains, and unless my counting skills have severely declined in the last day or two, this looks like 7 hands to me. So I'm trying to figure out who is who. Like this one on the bottom left, maybe Cheetah, I'm thinking, like something for Absolute Wonder Woman. Maybe this big one, maybe it's Bane, like who we've already been introduced to. I just don't know. I don't know. Just something to think of. You're stealing peanut butter jam. That's what I do here. I come up with great new catchphrases. What's the other book? Absolute Batman is getting an annual. Remember when that was like an every year thing? That was mostly in the late 80s into the 90s, but like every book used to get an annual all the time. It kind of took away from some of the specialness. I know it's in the title there, annual, but when every character gets one, you're sort of like, what are you going to fill it up with? Anyway, I'm excited about this one, I have to admit, because it's got Absolute Batman stories by people like Daniel Warren Johnson, James Herron, Meredith McLaren. Says it'll sort of fill in some of the behind-the-scenes stuff, like how did he create his Batmobile in this universe? Cool. I'm down. I've been really impressed in general with the Absolute universe. Yeah, there was also already a released cover for the Absolute Batman Annual by Daniel Warren Johnson. What's your fave annual? You mean like ever? Like a single great annual? Probably, I could be getting this a little bit wrong, but I think Superman number 11 was the one by Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons. What do you get for the man who has everything? It's with Mongol. That was a really good annual. That was a really cool example. Going back pretty far for that one, I guess. My fave manual, Dom Toretto's manual shifter in the Fast and Furious movies on his 1970 Dodge Charger, because I think all of the cars that they actually used in that film were the base model automatics, and they just sort of pretended that they were shifting. No, you know what the best manual really is, though? Came out earlier this year. The Jose Luis Garcia Lopez DC Standards Manual from the 80s. They finally released that. That is called like the DC Manual, and it's really good. It's just full of great art. Just classic. Moving forward, some more DC stuff. Yeah. This is the kind of just weird but fun stuff that I think comics needs to be sometimes, at least superhero comics. Sometimes you need to have something that's just, you're like, well, that doesn't necessarily make logical sense, but it sure sounds fun. DC KO. What is this event? I'll explain. So DC announced this week they're going to have a 5-issue event in October. It's called DC KO. It's a fighting tournament. Basically, take your Street Fighter, your Mortal Kombat, your Injustice, but just use the mainstream DC characters. Okay, maybe. 32 heroes will end up entering a tournament, and ultimately they need to go up against Darkseid because something weird is brewing on Apocalypse, and Darkseid's powers are growing. I almost don't care too much the specifics on that. That's enough. Fine. He's coming back. Build up to it. Do it. Let's see. So, written by Scott Snyder, art by Javi Fernandez, and they've got a bunch of tie-in issues. I probably won't pick those up, but those are all overseen by Joshua Williamson. You may remember that DC All In also started last October. So this is the 1-year anniversary of both Absolute and All In was overseen by Joshua Williamson and Scott Snyder. So that's what's going on there. KO is short for combat. I think it might be knockout, but yeah. Get over here. That's Superman's new catchphrase. Get over here. Also, there's got to be at least one person watching this show that's going to San Diego Comic-Con this week. I sure am not. I'd love to, but I'm not. But at San Diego Comic-Con, Thursday, DC is hosting an all-in panel. They're going to give away an Ash Can edition to the people that go to that panel. And it says it will reveal what the brackets are for the 32 people. That sounds fun. It just sounds cool to me. Who knows what the execution will be like? But I like the idea because some of the most fun conversations that we tend to have with other comic book readers are who would beat who in a fight. And it's fun to see that take place. You know, come up with a premise for it and go for it. Comic-Con is late this year. Is it typically earlier in July? It's always July, but maybe. If the fights are done well, it could be a blast. Let's just see people do unexpected things. Yeah, it could be Goku. Just cross over and beat everybody. Anyway, I don't know. It looked cool to me. Maybe I'm being a sucker, but I don't think so. I think it just sounds interesting. He is doing at least one of the covers, so he's involved on some level. And I think that at San Diego Comic-Con, it's likely that we'll find out what his next project is, since we know that he's wrapping up his Transformers run. So it's super likely that will come out. A comic like this is titled My Dad Can Beat Up Your Dad. Yes, I like that. All right. More news. Is Nathan Fillion launching his own comic? I think so. I think so. Let me explain. Oh, I'm sure that they did, but who knows what he's working on. All right. So what am I talking about with Nathan Fillion? So looking at Dark Horse's website, they announce all their panels. All the big publishers have. Dark Horse does have a signing this Saturday at their Dark Horse Comics booth from 5 to 5:50 p.m. And it says it's with Nathan Fillion and writer Heath Corson. It has no name for it. But why would Nathan Fillion be signing at Dark Horse, right? It seems to me like that's a strong indicator that Fillion's making a comic with Dark Horse that's going to be announced this weekend. Maybe I'm assuming something. People are like, no, he could just be signing his own photos, but I don't think so, because I think that they also even have a note that, like, no time for selfies or anything. So just in terms of his comic book background, in addition to currently playing Guy Gardner in Superman, Fillion did make a web series back in 2015. You may remember that. It was called Con Man, with actor Alan Tudyk as well. And Alan Tudyk worked on a comic based on the fictional character that Nathan Fillion played in Con Man. So that came out back in 2015. That's the closest I could really find to Nathan Fillion being directly involved himself, hands-on in a comic. But I would think this indicates, if he's doing a signing, that he's doing a book with Heath Corson. That's my guess. Heath has recently written some stuff with the what's it called, Minor Threats universe at Dark Horse. Minor Threats is the comic by Jordan Blum and Patton Oswalt. So yeah, they should just get all the actors to do. And wait, Resident Alien isn't a Dark Horse book, is it? No, never mind. So I don't know anything about this, but it looks like it's pretty popular. Murder Drones. Since it's so popular, somebody out there must know what this is. It seemed popular enough. I saw it reported on enough sites that I was like, I guess I'll talk about it, but I don't know. It is popular. Hey, Jay. Hey, Black Phoenix. Lovely to have you here. So what am I talking about? Oni. Oni is teaming up with Studio Glitch Productions to adapt their popular web series Murder Drones to comics. It's going to be a Kickstarter project starting in September, and it's going to be in comic shops in February. And apparently it's going to adapt the first season of the animated series. As far as the premise, I grabbed this. It's like an official description. In the far future, a natural disaster has flash frozen humanity's remote mining exoplanet Copper-9. Only now the worker drones, built by humanity and eventually outlived by them, have to rebuild society from the frozen ashes, an endeavor complicated by the appearance of dissembly drones, vampiric robot counterparts hell-bent on wiping mechanical life from the planet, and an unsettling virus known as the Absolute Solver. Probably is aimed a little younger than me, and maybe that's why I don't know about it, but it seems like it's very popular. I don't know. I should have looked up where this web series even is shown. Anyway, it could be popular. I would predict, based on the level of news and interest that I saw when I was trying to read up on this article, I bet it's a successful Kickstarter. I would be willing to put money on that. It's made by the studio behind the web series Amazing Digital Circus. I don't know that one either, I have to admit. Okay, somebody tells me it's not for kids. It's on YouTube. I just didn't have time. I hate when the kids talk about what's cool and I get lost. Apparently for me, kids are people up into their 40s at this point. I'm just like, oh, that's for the kids. The kids and their robots. The robots, the kids love them. I'm always seeing those 42, 43-year-old kids having fun with their robots. Hey, Randy, good to see you, buddy. Who watches YouTube? You're watching YouTube. Is there any other way to watch me? Me? No. Oh, it's also on Amazon Prime. Okay. The coffee is starting to affect me. My energy level is going up. I'm stuttering a bit less. Yeah, this is working. As long as I'm talking about Oni, let me talk about them expanding their license with EC Comics, because they, of course, are publishing Tales from the Crypt these days with the EC Comics branding. Well, EC Comics did more than just Tales from the Crypt and Vault of Horror, etc. All right, you don't have to reveal that to everybody, but thank you, sister. Yeah, Dave lives close enough that he's sometimes just, I can see you. He's outside the window. All right, so Oni announced that they have plans to launch more EC comics and titles beyond Tales from the Crypt. And this is now their press release. Oni is, quote, and William M. Gaines Agent Incorporated are proud to reveal Outlaw Showdown #1, the first in a new series of unpredictable and unforgiving 56-page specials visiting EC's trademark brand of hard-won vengeance upon storytelling genres from across the ages, from prehistoric survival to crime and punishment in epochs far beyond our own. Okay. So this book is obviously Western themed, and that was something EC did a bit of. But it is interesting here where they're mentioning things like crime and epochs far beyond our own. I feel like that implies an interest in going into things like crime suspense stories and Weird Science. By the way, Weird Science is a comic book movie, if you don't know, with Anthony Michael Hall and Robert Downey Jr. That is a comic book movie, by the way. Anyway, could be fun. We were talking earlier about movies that people don't always know are comic book movies, but Weird Science was technically an adaptation of the comic. Yes, Oingo Boingo was in it. Yes. Hey, thank you for the super chat. Let's see. I've grown rather skeptical about books being adapted to TV shows and movies. Look what they did to Game of Thrones and what's WOT? WOT. That one's not coming to me. I feel like Game of Thrones, it was a fair, as in it played fair with its adaptation. The last 2 to 3 seasons really sped things up and got a little dumber and more actiony. But I feel like all the characters ended where I kind of thought they would go based on my reading of the books. So I don't hate Game of Thrones. It was better in its first 5 seasons, I'll say, but I don't think it degenerated to garbage. There are shows that I'm really disappointed with how they ended, and I don't want to go back and watch them. But Game of Thrones, I would someday. Oh, Wheel of Time, people are telling me that. Sure, I know that's a big franchise. That's one I never read, though, so I haven't watched the adaptations either. But I do understand the skepticism that you have, Lord Luke Lightbringer. I definitely understand the skepticism. I don't always need a one-to-one adaptation now that there have been so many different types of adaptations of comics, but I do think it's very important to get the spirit of things right. Generally, like, the origin of the story, the themes have to carry over, the personality and the look. But if you want to change up some of the actual details of the story and stuff, I don't mind that, because I've already read the comic and I would like to be surprised with a few new bits. So I'm not against that, but I know what you mean. I do. And even then, I think, they knew from conversations with George R.R. Martin exactly where things were going. But those producers, what was it, Benioff and I forget the other guy's name right now, but they were getting all these offers to do Star Wars movies and stuff. And so they rushed it. HBO was like, no, we'd prefer you slow down and give us more seasons of the show. We are willing to spend the money. And they were like, no, we want to wrap it up. It's time. We want to go do more stuff. But then they turned in as kind of a subpar product, and they lost all those opportunities. Please hit the like button so Chris can get to Sesame Street without directions. It's true. The more likes, the more I just inherently know the way to Sesame Street. So far, I keep getting lost. But with enough likes, fingers crossed, I'm going to meet Snuffleupagus. I don't know where we're going with that. Weiss, yes, thank you. All right, what else we got for news? Dynamite is moving forward, as in they have completed their divorce, I'll call it, from Diamond Distribution. Earlier, we heard about them getting comic book distribution with Lunar. Well, now they've got a book distributor, because Dynamite does a lot of big art books and history books for comics, but they'll be using Simon and Schuster to handle book distribution to book market. Good for them. That's nice to hear. Oh, a super chat. Hey man, just want to say I love the channel. Thanks for the hard work. Wow. Well, stuff like that makes it worth it. Thank you. Thank you very much. Happy to do it. Happy to do it. What else is Dynamite doing? They're going to launch a new Peter Cannon Thunderbolt series. That's by Fred Van Lente and Jonathan Lau. If you don't know this character, you might know more about him than you think, actually, even if you haven't read his comics. But Peter Cannon was created by a police officer, actually, Pete Morisi, back in '66 when Charleston was looking to expand into the superhero market. If you don't know Peter Cannon, he doesn't have superpowers, but he was raised by this weird cult in Tibet. So he's a good martial artist. He's a genius. He was taught all sorts of stuff. He's the basis for Ozymandias in Watchmen, because I think a lot of us know Alan Moore originally wanted to use the Charleston superheroes. At the last minute, DC kind of got cold feet on using their new acquisition in that way. And so he created, daguerreotypes essentially based on those people. Rorschach was their version of the Question, and Blue Beetle became Night Owl, things like that. What else? Finally, Dynamite announced that they picked up the license to Supernatural. If you haven't watched it, I have to admit I am a fan of Supernatural, but I've only watched the first 10 seasons. 15 seasons is a lot. I needed a break. I do feel like I'm going to go back at some point and finish it off because I like the characters and I like that it was a horror show where, you go after a monster of the week. But Dynamite has picked that up from Warner Brothers, and it's going to follow the Winchester brothers, Sam and Dean, set between seasons 1 and 2. So early on, where they're, you're not overwhelmed with all sorts of lore. They're just going after monsters. They're traveling the country, hunting monsters. It's going to be by writer Greg Pak. I like hearing that. I like Greg Pak's comics. Artist Eder Messias. I don't know, but cool. Good for them. I hope it does well. I like Supernatural. The guy who created Supernatural is Eric Kripke, who currently is the showrunner for The Boys, which is a Dynamite comic. But there's another comic book connection. One of the writers and producers for at least the first 10 years, I think beyond that, was Ben Edlund, the creator of The Tick. And in my original art somewhere, I've got like a book of original art that I've got, and I've got a drawing of Dean Winchester by Ben Edlund. That's a prized possession for me. Yeah, don't pay attention. That did not happen. None of them were cyborgs from the future. All right, I got pretty nerdy there, but that was something that interested me. This blew my mind. Raise your hands out there. Do you already know about John Byrne's fanfic X-Men comic that he's been working on for years? I will explain it to you in a minute, but I am very curious how many people know that that's something John Byrne has been doing for several years, is making X-Men comics for himself. Let's get into these details. Raise his hand. Yes. The Tick is fantastic. And Kayfabe's episode on this era was awesome. I forgot that they covered that, Dave. I appreciate the reminder. Okay, a couple of people know about that. Oh, nice. Look at this. Oh, hey, didn't see you there. I'm going to be on vacation during San Diego Comic-Con weekend, and I'm looking forward to soaking up all the news. I don't blame you. There should be some really good stuff. So what am I talking about here, though? So for those not in the know, 2018, John Byrne started writing and penciling, no inks, no colors, but he began writing and penciling X-Men comics as though he was continuing the story from when he left. Because of course he and Claremont had an amazing era. Days of Future Past, Dark Phoenix Saga, tons of other classic stories. It's a great era for X-Men in general. And people keep coming back to the well for a lot of those ideas. A lot of great characters introduced. But he left, and he now makes his own X-Men comics as though he continued the story. So it's called X-Men Elsewhen, although that's pretty informal as far as the title goes. And he's made 32 issues. He takes his time, but he's made 32 issues. He has said before on his forums, John Byrne has, that they haven't been able to come to a deal where Marvel would want to print it. I don't know what the hangups would have been, but let me just acknowledge, what does this button do? It helps me. Bless you, sir. Bless you. And last October, so we are going back a ways, but last October, Byrne posted, I may soon have some relatively big news about Elsewhen. Feel free to foam at the mouth. And his, super devoted followers, oh, it's got to be coming to print. Marvel's got to be, buying it and paying him for it. But then nothing. It's been, like 9 months. Yesterday, he posted to Byrne Robotics, that's his forum, quote, that big news I mentioned, Thursday, nuff said. I have to imagine Marvel will be announcing at Comic-Con on Thursday that they're going to publish Elsewhen. The work is already done. Just needs to be inked, lettered, colored professionally, but it's there. And I think that there's lots of people that would be very interested in seeing a different take on the story, going back in time and redoing things. It's going to basically say, what if Jean Grey survived the Dark Phoenix saga? Because that's when Byrne left. And he takes it in some interesting directions. So it really is, at this point, doujinshi. I mean, it is a fan comic, even though he's a huge name and he's, but he's not making money on it. He's just putting it out there because I guess it's what interests him these days. And passion counts for a lot. I hope it doesn't get colored. Marvel will probably ruin it unless they get someone legendary. I can understand that. If they do, they should definitely go with basically flat colors, not too much rendering. But I think it would benefit from getting inked. But I agree that it doesn't necessarily need to be in color. That said, I would assume Marvel will do it. He's been taking his time, but 32 issues, basically. Savage Land is in there. A bunch of stuff is in there. There's also, some of the stuff with, like, Kitty is a little uncomfortable for me because I feel like Byrne sexualizes young girls in his stories, and that sort of still happens. But aside from that, it's got some cool Wolverine and Cyclops and Storm stuff. Yeah, Joseph Rubinstein has inked some, but I mean, that's again, like him doing it for fun. There's lots of fans too, I should point out, that have inked and colored some of these pages for fun. So, yeah. It'll be interesting to see what happens. According to Byrne, we'll know Thursday. That's pretty darn soon. Marvel is doing their own Fantastic Four Gargoyles book. What do I mean their own? Well, we already knew that Dynamite was going to do a Gargoyles Fantastic Four crossover in October. Now Marvel has announced they'll also make a story, and it's going to be set in that same shared continuity. So each of these is a one-shot, but apparently it will be set in the same sort of shared universe. They're both coming out in October. Marvel's just comes out second. The one-shot is by the Gargoyles creator, Greg Weisman. Good, that makes sense. Artist Enid Balam, not familiar, unfortunately. Variant covers by artists like Peach Momoko, bunch of variant covers. They all look cool. And the story is going to feature the Fantastic Four villain Diablo, learning that his search for immortality might be answered with the blood of the Gargoyles. Diablo, what a goofy ass villain in a lot of ways. He's definitely been a recurring enemy for the Fantastic Four and given them trouble. He's a master of alchemy, and he mainly just sort of drinks potions for things like super strength for a while. Most disgustingly, he sometimes hides his potions in his long Dali-esque mustache, and he's been known to suck the serums out of his mustache, which gross. Gross, Diablo. A Spider-Man crossover. I've got some Spider-Man sort of crossover news, but not the kind you're talking about. Well, maybe it does, for all we know. Maybe Gray Gargoyle is in this. Oh, but are you sure you're thinking of Gargoyle, or are you thinking of Gremlin? Because there's the Iron Man villain Gremlin, but there's also sort of a Hulk villain, primarily Gray Gargoyle. Yes, you are all making the flavor saver jokes. That's how you sneak your drinks onto a plane. Yeah, just Kevin Feige shared a bunch of MCU news. I was surprised at how much he shared, but it isn't really spoiler stuff. It's just like their plans. So he spoke to Variety. You can read it. It's free. But Variety posted a really big interview where Kevin Feige goes into the future of the MCU. A lot of it was talking about how they are scaling back, how much content, how many hours of story they're producing. And some of that was, decided above his head. Like DC installed a new president, Bob Iger, and Iger was like, I want a ton of Disney Plus shows. I want 4 movies a year. And it stretched the producers thin as far as quality control. But Feige was like, that was the job. There wasn't a lot we could do about it. But he said that, now Eisner is back as president and they're allowed to focus more on quality. Thunderbolts was sort of the first movie where they've got the new leadership. And I think Thunderbolts was quite good, actually. But Feige acknowledges, he's like, yeah, so some of these movies have really underperformed. He goes, I'm still very proud of a lot of them. He's like, I think Thunderbolts is a legit good movie, but maybe the title was something we didn't get people familiar with. Maybe they needed to be familiar with it. Or maybe people thought that they needed to watch a bunch of TV shows to even follow along. And you didn't, but we need to let people know that you can enjoy each movie in itself. It isn't like they're all sequels building on each other. It's pretty important. It's time for some sugar-free Mountain Dew Baja Blast. For now, I will enjoy this coffee some more, but thank you, Steve. Always good to have you here. Was it Bob Chapek? Excuse me. I said Eisner. What I meant to say was Bob Chapek was the one demanding all the extra content, and then Iger came back as president. Forget Eisner. He was a president before all that. Before. Thank you. You did catch me in a mistake. All right. What else am I talking about? He said that Marvel has no plans to introduce Miles Morales into the MCU because he specifically said Sony has told Marvel, stay away from that character. We have plans for him. So what can they do? Sony legally has the rights to do the movies. He explained that the X-Men will be recast eventually, and once they join the MCU, which is sort of the next thing that they're starting to plan now. They've got a 7-year plan, and they said the X-Men are a big part of it. He specifically said that the MCU will reset, but not reboot after Secret Wars. He's like, reboot sounds too big and it sounds scary, like you're throwing everything out. But he goes, but we do want to make it easy to have a jumping on point for viewers. So we're going to make that's apparently a big focus, is finding a way to reset things a bit. I think that makes sense. You can't count on people having 15 years of knowledge and keep building and building and building. You've created an amazing shared world. It's very different, but you can't keep building on it the same way you can with comics. It's just not feasible. It's just not feasible. Jonathan Hickman needs to do MCU with all his diagrams. Yes. We'll call that one Info Charts. Subtitle, The Jonathan Hickman Movie. It will be a movie of nothing but flow charts. Finally, this is not from Kevin Feige, but in related MCU news, it was announced that Red Ghost and his super apes have been cut from Fantastic Four First Steps. So actor John Malkovich will not actually appear at all. Don't go in expecting that. But I guess that just means that someday there will be some bonus footage for us to see, or maybe the next movie will have a cameo or something. But yeah, they were going to have, on some level, Red Ghost and his super apes, but that is not part of it anymore. Could have been fun, but if it feels like that's overstuffed, I'm willing to let Ivan Kragoff, or whatever his name is, go. 20 years with no Steve Rogers, etc., new blood. At some point, yeah, you got to find a way to bring in some of the characters that people really, really love. So I get it. Yeah, all of your apes are gone. Marvel is teasing the end of their Ultimate line. I don't know why. I don't really believe that they're going to end their Ultimate comics. They sell very well, and overall the quality is quite strong, but they definitely are teasing it. So this week, Marvel released 2 teaser images. There's this one, and there's one of like the letter U, and it's sort of like fading away, like when Thanos did his snap in the movies. They're both like, playing off of that Avengers Endgame feeling. They promised, Marvel did, that there will be more details this weekend at San Diego Comic-Con, of course. The storyline is, if you're not following along, it is nearing the return of the villain, the Maker, who crafted this universe. He set everything in motion. He made it a really dark place. The heroes got this small win where they locked him away for like a 2-year window, but eventually he's going to be able to unlock his prison and get out. And the Avengers especially, or in this case, they're called the Ultimates, have been working hard to plan for that return. But yeah, maybe Maker will reset things again. I don't know. What's inside the U of the title? Ultimates. It's just Ultimate. I wouldn't be surprised if they sort of just wrapped up the current storylines, but then continued with a lot of these characters. That would be my expectation. But I don't know for sure. I will say that some of my favorite characters are the ones that are much different. I think that like Ultimate X-Men has my favorite group of characters, including Mei Igarashi. I just think Maystorm is a really cool and interesting character. Over in Spider-Man, I kind of am starting to get more interested in his son than Peter. It's just me. Just seeing if I'm missing anything. Okay. Invincible Season 5 got confirmed this week. I will say that my non-comic book reading friends that know that I'm into comics love coming up and asking me about the Invincible show. People love Invincible. So good. Yeah, so Amazon announced it as an early announcement because Season 4 hasn't even started yet. But they announced, yes, they've picked up Invincible for a Season 5. Season 3 apparently was Amazon's most watched animated show ever. So it's doing very well for them. Season 4 is scheduled to come out. All we know for sure is in 2026. But if we go by the past, probably early spring, March, April, probably. That's not official. That's just me. And the renewal announcement included them saying that there will be a new cast member, Matthew Rhys. I think probably best known as one of the leads of the show, The Americans. Great show, by the way. Fans are speculating that he could play either Dinosaurus or Thrag. But I feel like Thrag is a bit of a stretch only because they were saying that Matthew Rhys is joining for Season 5 and Thrag should show up at some point in Season 4. But who can say for sure? I just don't know. I don't know. Battle Beast is very good. I agree. I agree. What else have we got? Image specifically accused Diamond of stealing. Let me get into that. Just some drama about the whole bankruptcy situation again. Oh, and an acknowledgement for this. Chris, the comic Tropes After Dark theme slaps. Also, Chris and Tropers, thanks for making Mondays stink less. Like Garfield loves lasagna, hate Mondays. Like Garfield, love lasagna, hate Mondays. I think that's what Steve is saying. Yes. That's it. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right. This is Diamond's Warehouse, by the way. Anyway. So Image has joined a bunch of other publishers we've talked about in the last few weeks in objecting to Diamond's plans to liquidate the inventory of comics that they're technically holding on consignment. And Image had no problem using some pretty strong language, stronger than the rest of the publishers. They stated that this was, quote, a brazen attempt by the debtors to misappropriate Image's inventory, end quote. And, quote, the debtors cannot accomplish their goal of stealing and then selling Image's inventory through a motion. Ooh. All right. Meanwhile, also related, this week, the Baltimore Bankruptcy Court that's overseeing this whole bankruptcy have agreed with publishers' objections to have the hearing this week because this is Comic-Con week. All the publishers are focused on getting to San Diego and promoting themselves. Well, the Bankruptcy Court was like, yeah, that is a very reasonable objection. So they've pushed out that hearing about the liquidation and whether it will take place to August 5th. So we'll know more in a couple weeks. We'll know more then. Image is very right. It's crazy because Images, I've been reading these legal filings. I'm not a lawyer, so I can't say that I understand all of it at all. But I will say that Image said, look, we've been trying without success to reach them, to get them to how do we get these books back, for instance, and that they haven't engaged in anything meaningful on that end. So if you're not giving these publishers even a chance to get their inventory back, how can you possibly say, oh, they've abandoned it, we're allowed to liquidate it and pay off, JP Morgan Chase? No, that's crazy. That's just bonkers. All right, there's a lot of news, so I'm going to keep going. Hector Plasm is returning. Hector Plasm returns. Does anyone out there read Hector Plasm? I might be biased. This is written by a friend of mine. I'm putting that disclaimer out there right up front, but I'm excited for this. So Hector Plasm, if you don't know, is a supernatural detective. Maybe like Dylan Dog, a little bit like Hellboy, but without like all the powers and stuff or the strength. It's created by the Invincible Adam Eve team of Benito Cereno and Nate Bellegarde. Benito is currently also writing Blood and Thunder, great sci-fi book. Nate Bellegarde has done a ton of comics, Nowhere Men, Brit, Flight, lots of great comics. Anyway, this character first started showing up as little backup strips in Invincible, and then it got some one-shots. Really cool character. Nobody knows it. Okay. Oh, good. You do know. Yes. Hector Plasm de Mortuis. And then there's also Hector Plasm Totentas. A super chat. I second Steve's comment. This show and the community you've gathered here make Monday night awesome. Good. Start out our work week strong, right? Something to look forward to. I'm not a lawyer, but I do have a comic book channel, and I believe, Your Honor, that qualifies me as an expert witness. I rest my case. None of that was accurate, sir. You're imprisoned. Bang, bang, bang. Oh. All right. So anyway, Hector Plasm will next return in a 3-issue series where he's hunting Bigfoot rather than ghosts. He's always done stuff with ghosts and spirits, but Bigfoot is something physical, an actual maybe monster, or at least a cryptid. Comes out appropriately enough this October. Joining Benito on the art is Derek Hunter. Nate Bellegarde's doing other things. I think he's still working on the animation team at Invincible on background characters. That was the last thing I heard he was working on. But Derek Hunter has worked in both animation and comic books. He's worked on animated shows like Adventure Time and DuckTales. He's worked on comics like Pretty Violent and Walking Dead Small Bites. So very cool. I think it's going to be fun. It's going to be funny. It's going to have real lore. Benito definitely loves reading about weird bits of history and stuff like that. So I recommend it, and I wanted to put it on people's radar. Hector Plasm. He's hunting Bigfoot and the Muscle Machines. Was that Bigfoot like the truck that would go around to various arenas? Was that what that was?
Sunday at the Centrum. We've got Bigfoot and Gravedigger. You're gonna go mud bogging, then you're gonna want to go with Gravedigger.
It was okay. I never watched that, but I thought it sounded a little familiar. Dragotta and Brothers teaming up? Yes, please. Technically, they already have, but let me talk about it. Yeah, let's see. Artist Nick Dragotta, very, very well known these days for Absolute Batman, but he's done some other great stuff. East of West, good book. Writer David Brothers. They're releasing a one-shot in October through Image called Good Devils. Don't play fair with evil. What is it? The team says it's going to feature 3 stories involving fights. They're all fight stories. It was originally made for the Cry Punch anthology, the Short Box Comics Fair, and I guess a backup in Image's book New Byrne. So 3 things that they have technically done before, but probably not seen by lots of people considering how big these names are, and they're going to pull them all together. Brothers noted some interesting inspirations for this, folks. So that's part of what interested me in the news. He said that manga like Fist of the North Star and Hajime no Ippo, boxing manga, were inspirations, as well as jazz poet Gil Scott-Heron. Huh. Okay, I can sort of see how that could be at least an attitude. So, respect. We'll see what happens with it. But I think these guys have built their names in the last couple of years, and this could really be coming out at a good time. Just calling something Good Devils coming out in October. Simple fight comic. Could be a lot of fun. Yeah, I think it looks cool. Oh, no, I'm talking about David Brothers. Sorry. And David Brothers was just on, what show was it? It was another comic book show, Comic Book Couples Counseling Podcast, I want to say. I think it was David Brothers and Chip Zdarsky might have been on it together, like picking their favorite comics at a comic book store, kind of like the Criterion collection. They'll have an actor be like, Armageddon is my favorite Criterion movie. Something. David Brothers' old fourth. Wow, that's taking me back. I had not thought about Fourth Letter in a long time. Especially for Black History Month, were great back in the day. It's nice to see him moving on and doing comics. So that's awesome. The revolution will not be televised. Wait. Oh, was that? I did not remember that was a quote from Scott Heron. But it was, wasn't it? That's pretty epic. That's pretty epic. Hajime no Ippo was an inspiration for Creed 3's fight sequences. I believe that because I know that actor Michael B. Jordan is a big nerd for manga and anime. Yeah. But pretty classic line. All right, what else have I got? Spawn is entering the Massiverse. I think that can be a lot of fun. Look at that cover. But this fits too. This fits really well. It's like, it's such a smooth team up or a crossover that it just makes sense. Writers Ryan Parrott and Nick Cotton, along with artist Abel, are going to feature medieval Spawn in issue 30 of their book, Rogue Sun. Cool. Rogue Sun is a supernatural superhero. The crossover will take place fully within the issue. It's not like you have to read any other books to understand this story. It's a one-issue story. But Parrott promised that there will be additional info that will be revealed at the San Diego Comic-Con Massiveverse panel. I don't know what else he could be talking about there. The story is going to feature, obviously, Todd McFarlane's medieval Spawn, and it also will feature the first wielder of the Sunstone. That's what gives Rogue Sun his powers. There's a guy named Caleb Hawthorne back in the medieval ages. So perfect timing. And they're going to be chasing the same bad guy. I love that. 2 Image supernatural heroes who did exist during the medieval time period. It's just a crossover that makes a heck of a lot of sense. Whoa, you saw Gil Scott-Heron perform before he passed? He performed that live at Glastonbury, and it was friggin' legendary. The revolution totally will be televised, though, via internet at least. Yeah, well, technology changes more than I think Gil Scott-Heron could have predicted. But his point stands. His point stands. Congrats on getting to see him. Glastonbury. Wow, that's really cool. That's really cool. Because I think he passed away in something like 2011. I don't know I could be a little off by the year, but it was around then. I think he was only in his 60s. Sad. You saw him twice, also a warm-up? That's really cool. Congratulations. That's really cool. Yes, exactly. Oh, good. I'm glad when I remember trivia that I have no need for. You know, you have to play fast and loose with Image crossover continuity, just to be clear, because Invincible has had, Youngblood and Savage Dragon and all sorts of other superheroes that the original Image creators created take place in his book. You have to just sort of take each book on their own, and it's like, it's real there. Do they all share the same one world? It's a little looser, but that's all. You know what? The most important thing is just good stories. I feel like I do remember a certain amount of trivia. The stuff I'm bad at are, in general, names. Just names. So the one that I have the most trouble with are sports statistics and players. It's not that it doesn't interest me. I've just never really felt like I was great at sports trivia. So that's like always my weak point. If you ever play me in, Trivial Pursuits or Trivia Night or something like that, that's where you've got a chance at beating me. Anyway, cool to see, a classic character like that come back in this. Judge Dredd, the movie. 3rd time's a charm? Hey, for my money, that second one was awesome. Dredd is a good movie. Reasonable budget, but it felt authentic. But was it a big success? No, it wasn't. But they're going for it again. Jay, appreciate you stopping by. So, a new Judge Dredd movie is in development, and it was announced that there's a package deal to name people working on it. Taika Waititi is signed to direct. Drew Pearce is signed to write. He's written movies like Fall Guy and Mission Impossible: Rogue Nation. Okay, well, those are some big names that could potentially move something like this forward. I know, I was thinking the same thing, Kevin, is Judge Dredd has a lot of history at this point and a lot of interesting storylines to potentially adapt. And Judge Death could be a really cool way to give us something new. But as far as, what's happening behind the scenes, really all we know is those 2 people, Waititi and Pierce. No cast yet, no log line. The Hollywood Reporter did say that the plan apparently is to lean more heavily on the comics, world building, the humor of it, satirical black humor. Those are the important elements. I mean, I think that the goal would be build up Judge Dredd as something that people are really interested in the world, and then you could start doing some stories with maybe other judges or some of the other 2000 AD characters that sometimes take place in a sci-fi setting. Dude, yeah, Carl Urban, not that old. You know, Judge Dredd ages basically in real time. Put him in the helmet. I would love Carl Urban still. Absolutely. To be fair, Taika Waititi has been signed to a lot of things. A lot of directors are. They don't all happen. This is not like a for sure thing yet, but it's a step in the direction to it happening. Yeah, Strontium Dog could be cool. I mean, we are getting the animated Rogue Trooper movie within a year. Waititi and Pierce, according to the article, are both said to be fans of the 2000 AD comics. They both said that they grew up reading this stuff. So hopefully they have respect for people like Carlos Ezquerra, Brian Bolland, writers like Wagner and Ennis. Too many to count. Too many to count. Just a lot of really great people, though. Death Shed could be interesting. Carl Urban and I auditioned for the same role in Hangman with Al Pacino. Guess who got the part? Al Pacino. That's really cool, though, Kevin. I wanted to just mention this. There's like a sad piece in this, but overall it's positive. Publisher Markosia is teaming up with GlobalComix. That was announced this week. It's a UK publisher, if you're not familiar. They've added 49 new titles, more comics than that, but 49 different titles to the digital reading site, GlobalComix. Cool. Good for them. Lots of publishers have, Image, Archie, IDW, like lots of publishers have joined GlobalComix. They've got genres from sci-fi to horror, crime, all ages comics. Oh, very nice, Winston. Congrats. I think that GlobalComix is a pretty easy place to navigate to find some cool comics, to be clear. I wanted to point one out that they've added in this new group. They've got some comics, specifically Wolalina, by my late friend Daniel Carhoonan. I stuttered. If any of you were watching this show long enough, Daniel used to be a regular here in the live chat. And I met him not in my last trip to Japan, but the one right before that. And I lettered one of his comics that he did through Markosia. It's not available on GlobalComix, at least yet, but I lettered his book Lauxor, Lauxor. It's about like a transforming robot detective trying to figure out why the people on their robot planet can't transform anymore. Pretty cool idea. Pretty good execution, I thought. I'm biased. I worked on it. And I really liked Daniel. He was an interesting guy. He loved comics. He was a big supporter of my channel. He was always sharing to social media anytime there was a new episode. He just passed away like a month after I had met him in person in Japan, really suddenly. And he's not here anymore. But he did do a bunch of comics. He always paid his talent. And he's a guy that worked with a lot of up and coming artists on books like this. Just too many to list, actually, but people that So anyway, you might want to check something like that out someday. Daniel Carhoonan on GlobalComix. But look, I just got a super chat as well. I want to acknowledge that. Oh, hi! You got me reading super chats. Speaking of super chats, what happens when Superman talks to Lois Lane? That's a super chat. Yeah, he was young. He was really young. He just passed away like out of nowhere. And I don't know the full details, but I almost don't want to know. Just found out from his family. It was a while back now. So I just think it's cool that even though he's gone, some of his comics are still getting shared in new places and hopefully finding some new readers. I love the idea of something that we create outliving us. For most people, that's going to be their kids. But for some of us, it might be something that we write or draw or do something like that. It's nice to hear. Greetings from New Orleans. Just popping in so I can catch myself when I watch it on demand on Tuesday morning. All right. Well, you get yourself a po' boy and some Abita ale, some Abita Amber I want you to have. And sit down with some Zaps, chips, and you can enjoy me. Oh, that's nice that you remember. That's really nice. Thank you. All right. Last piece of news I have is just a crazy one, okay? A man was caught smuggling drugs in his comics, okay? An Indian man was traveling from Doha to Bengaluru, and he was arrested at the airport for smuggling cocaine. It's a pretty taboo drug to be caught at the airport with. Specifically, the officers that were going through his baggage, and I didn't see an article that explained why they even twig to it. I can only assume maybe like a drug sniffing dog or something, but they went through his baggage and they felt like his comics felt too heavy. Like his comics were too heavy. And there was 4 kilograms of cocaine in there. That's a lot. That's a lot. That's worth about $4.6 million, they said. They gave the price of what it's worth in India, and I just did to USD. But like, good Lord. Good Lord. He was smuggling comics and copies of Marvel's Trouble. The TSA realized something was wrong because no one would read that. That's a good joke. That's a good joke. Hopefully they were Our Man comics. Yes, a character that takes a drug to get superpowers. Don't travel with those metal cover comics. Yeah. I don't know. I don't get it. Like, must have been like sort of a graphic novel or something with like the middle hollowed out. Kind of like a book that you'd cut something in, something like that. I don't know. Comics have gotten heavy though. Yeah, I know. The reason I currently look as buff as I do is because, I'm always picking up my weekly comics, and it's not nothing. It was a comic about Snow Flame, the DC Comics supervillain who gets his powers by doing cocaine. All right, that is the news of the week. So let me set up my camera, and we'll take a look at a few of the comics that I picked up this week. We're not going to talk about all of them because it was actually a pretty big week for comics in terms of how much came out. Let me just set this up. Get it in focus. Yeah. Put it there. Ooh, look at this. Thank you for renewing my love for the art form that is comic books, but please, more Lady Cop. There was only the one issue. There was only one issue. Although, if you really love Lady Cop, Tom King used her in the 12-issue series Danger Street, but it's not really as goofy and crazy as her original appearance. But thank you for that. Thank you very much. Who is the white robot peeking in from the window behind you? That's Infotron. Remember early episodes of Comic Tropes, I would have a robot sidekick sometimes that would just get information for me. And I kind of ditched him because there were other like sidekicks like that, but I made a bunch of these as a plushie back in the day. Yeah, but then I was like, well, how am I possibly going to actually ship these all? And anyway, yeah, so it's just an Infotron. And we'll put him there and he'll peek at us. Got a little sidekick. So he's still around. He's still around. You have one. Nice, nice. Pour one out for Infotron. You guys are great. Yep. I had fun writing for him, but I will say that actually having to go back and forth putting on the suit, I'm going behind the scenes since this isn't like the Comic Tropes episode, it was me wearing that suit. It was hot and I could barely see. It was like bulky. It was never easy to do. It was a lot more fun in concept to have Infotron than to actually put him into the show, if that makes sense. Yeah. Tell you what, let's do some reviews.
All right, gentlemen, let's review.
I think I've reviewed about as much as I can.
Yeah, there we go. Some reviews. So, the first one I think I'd love to talk about. Let me move some of this stuff. It looks messy. Just get that out of the way. This is sort of my work area for a bunch of stuff. But the one I want to talk about is Absolute Batman. I think this is my favorite issue of Absolute Batman yet. It pushes some boundaries, folks. This is what I am calling body horror Batman. And I'm not just talking about Bane and his weird roided out appearance. Because in this, Bruce Wayne has snuck in to this secret facility, trying to track down Bane. And he gets captured. And the doctors are observing him all the time. They say that they removed all of his clothes and weapons and utility belt. They talk about all the different things he had in there. And then they said he even had like little tiny things like lockpicks and stuff hidden under his skin. He'd planned ahead, but they think that they've caught it all, but they never do. In this, for instance, he's got like a needle embedded in the roof of his mouth, and he uses that as a lockpick to escape. But every time he escapes, he ends up coming up against Bane, who just like smacks him back into place. Just really, really rough. But there's one where Bruce Wayne, like he's stopped eating, okay? And the doctors think, oh, good, we finally broke him. So they inserted a feeding tube. But nope, that was all part of a long-term plan where he rigs his own, what do you call it, like food tube to instead squirt his stomach acid onto his jailers. How insane is that? That is some gross stuff. He's squirting his stomach acid and pulling needles out of his mouth. This Bruce Wayne is hardcore. This is such a crazy version of him. Need a plush of sugar-free Mountain Dew Baja Blast. Thank you. Tell you what, that's a double salute right there. $2 gets 2 salutes. This guy is just... It talks about his willpower in there. What makes Batman Batman? And one thing you could argue is it's his indomitable will, right? I know that should be a theme for Green Lantern, but I think we can agree that Bruce Wayne, Batman, whatever you want to call him, has an indomitable will. And this is something where he has been in prison for months upon months. Like at one point they shave him and they're doing these surgeries. They're basically putting him through the same process as what created Bane. So I don't know exactly where it's going to go, but let's just say like he keeps trying to escape and he keeps getting defeated by Bane. Like Bane has no problem defeating this super badass guy. Oh, and they also say what his height and weight is in this. And let me just see. It's humongous. We've all talked about how Nick Dragotta draws, Absolute Batman just totally jacked, right? Dude, this is like pro wrestler stats. He's 6'9", 421 pounds. So this is a Bruce Wayne that just works out hardcore. There are some subplots in this that are genuinely interesting. Stuff with his mother, stuff with his friend Waylon Jones, stuff with Selena Kyle for the first time. Really cool stuff. But I thought what was the coolest was just how over the top it was that this is like Batman without any weapons is still going to figure out a way to make weapons, because this is an engineer Batman and he makes things. He makes gadgets, he makes tools, and I loved it. I was like, oh my God, he's turning his own body into a weapon. There's another scene where he has taken out his molars and put them in his fists so that his fists can cut people. He's using his teeth. He uses his teeth as like brass knuckles. It's insane how over the top this guy is. I loved it. He's from parts unknown. His ankles are going to be dust. it's a look. That's the comic bookness of it, right? This big guy can just keep going through like the physical abuse of fights and stuff. I mean, nobody could do what Batman does on the regular. So we just have to sort of buy into that in a comic book world, okay? Or, who knows? I mean, they're putting him through this Bane process. Maybe in this world, the drugs they give him will sort of help him keep going. I don't know. It's not like they hint at that. I'm just thinking ahead. I just thought it was really, really cool how this Batman really turned his whole body into a weapon. And I thought it was a blast of an issue. It was my favorite. Like a Batman that has had all of his, allies and tools and weapons stripped from him, and he still manages to be dangerous. I liked it. I'm going to set this aside for now. There were a few. Oh, you know what? Let me pause for a minute because I got a few digital things that I'll talk about. Scott Snyder is having fun. I agree. I picked up a few books digitally. One was the latest issue of Blood and Thunder. It wasn't at my comic book shop, or it was sold out. So I got the digital version of issue 3 of Blood and Thunder. That's by Benito Cereno and E.J. Sue, with input from Robert Kirkman. And again, I just want to say that is a really fun sci-fi book with some really cool world building and really good characters. Fantastic art. Zero notes about the art. It's fantastic. Some of the best out there. I was a little annoyed at how much in this specific issue Benito used swears. And I know that sounds prudish, because I don't care about bad language. I felt like it didn't feel completely organic to the main character each time. And I know Benito, and I know he's like very clever. He does have a lot of clever dialogue in issue 3. I felt like there was a lot of just reliance on the character dropping swears, where I was like, I mean, a little of it I get, but I felt like it was too much. I might be overreacting, though. I might be. The other one I read digitally was issue 1 of Post Malone's Big Rig. And if I had it here in front of me, I could give more credit to, the writer. I want to say the artist. His last name is Gooden. It might be Drew Gooden, who I think does Barbaric. It was pretty good. It's in black and white, and I liked it. I thought that the art was great. I thought the art was really rock solid throughout Big Rig. I also thought that the premise was pretty strong. Medieval times, and a huge truck shows up, but the trucker is not from the future. He's from the present. But it seems like he has some sort of supernatural connection with it when he drives it, like where when he gets in it, he understands how to drive it and how to use those things. There might be more to tell with that. But I felt like the main characters were likable. He also gets some sidekicks, a Viking witch and a Native American hunter or tracker. Both of those ladies are really interesting sidekicks. I'm calling them sidekicks. They sort of form a team, and they're going up against literal devils from hell. And they possess people, villagers, and sort of like, drive them madness. But it's really good. It's not perfect. When I have it physically, I might talk about it some more next week. I was surprised. I'll go back to talking about stuff that I physically have in front of me. It is drawn by Nathan Gooden. Not Drew. Nathan Gooden. Thank you very much. Thank you. This one? Maybe this one. Yeah. I tried issue 1 of Ghost Pepper because I like Ludo Lullaby's artwork. Very much in the vein of, Joe Madureira, but for today. Little more cartoony here and there, but that's okay with me. The storytelling is good. The character design is fun. The premise is, a post-apocalyptic future, but follows this girl who runs a food truck and ends up becoming central to the premise. It's pretty big too. Like this is a bigger than usual comic. I don't know exactly how many pages, but I guess at least 48 without counting. Some okay action sequences. Mostly I like the world building, but here and there I just sort of felt like there wasn't quite enough with the character development to make me understand specifically who they were. I liked the character design and I could tell who the characters were, but I couldn't always tell exactly what kind of people they were. And maybe we'll get some of that later. I don't know if I got enough out of issue 1 to stick with it, but I would say that the art is pretty damn strong, and I like that the hook is sort of so food focused. I think a lot of people will get more out of it than I did, to be honest. Interesting, weird, different. Those are all pluses in my book. I just didn't feel like I got a super good understanding of the main character who runs the food truck, other than sort of generically good and talented. But what drives her? What's her purpose? What does she want? I don't know. Yeah, that's actually a really interesting way to phrase it. The bear fused with Mad Max. A little. There's a little bit more robot stuff in it to keep it from being as sort of low tech as Mad Max is. But yeah, it's a good value. I will say that. Even if it was just the art, over 40 pages for $4.99 these days is a good value. And I think that there is a lot of passion in this. I would imagine there's more to come. Battle Chasers is definitely done, just to be clear. Battle Chasers is definitely done. Let's go, Mets. Ready for the NFL season? Mostly, football is my guilty pleasure. Guilty only in the sense that, I acknowledge there are a lot of serious injuries that happen in it, but do I enjoy it as a sport? I really do. That said, my day job has had me working on weekends every weekend for, many years. So the amount of football I get to watch, since most of it is Sunday, has gone down a lot. I would say that I'm not as plugged into all the names and trades that have gone on, but I try to watch as much as I can. I do love football. Oh no, I'm sorry to hear that you're dealing with something like that, John. No San Diego. Well, hey, family and health comes first. So don't even think about that too much, just focus on getting better, okay? That's more important. Sorry though. Sorry, that's a bummer. Why don't you send me those tickets and I'll go in your place? No, I'm just kidding. So what's my ultimate verdict? Like, good, just not great or exceptional. But there's promise. Here's one I kind of wanted to like and didn't dislike, but it would be hard to recommend. We got all those one-shots with various Marvel characters going up against the Fantastic Four. Is this not quite in focus yet? And I liked some of them. I didn't love them all. I think that's a little more focused. Sorry. This one is just, instead of one-shots with creative stories, it's going to be a multiple issue thing with a bunch of the Marvel Universe. And that said, this first issue is really focused on the Fantastic Four and the Avengers, whereas I think next issue is more likely to be the X-Men and the New Avengers, something like that. I didn't feel like everybody was completely in character. The Fantastic Four is legit scared of Godzilla. And I get what Jerry Duggan's going for there. A, it's played a little for laughs, which is totally fine. And B, you have to build up Godzilla as a credible threat. And they do that by having him take out a Celestial. And the Fantastic Four would respect that. But, this is a lot of Reed Richards, sweating profusely and being, really nervous. And I feel like he's kind of able to keep things under control And he's gone up against celestial level threats before. So I didn't feel like that was completely in character. Yeah, and it's mostly, like the Avengers just sort of like throwing their shields and laser blasts at Godzilla, but nothing really slows him down. But what's the point of it all? Because for instance, the Hulk one shot played a lot with the idea of science run amok and the dangers of science, right? Thor versus Godzilla played into the horror of it all, like how these guys were just absolutely unstoppable, and that like if they went to battle, it was going to be epic. It was going to just change the world, and it did. So what does this give me? It gives adventure and stuff, but like, Thor gets taken out with like a tail thwap that throws him into orbit unconscious. I can buy that stuff happens, but they also have to go out of their way to say like, why can't Doctor Strange just, teleport him? And Doctor Strange is like, oh, sorry, I'll try to help when I can. I'm busy right now. I'm not going to continue with it. The art is good. If you want a little bit more of a lighthearted take on things, it's a little funny. I think the Mark Brooks cover is really cool. I think that's a great 2-page spread that's pretty epic and cool looking. I just can't really recommend it, to be honest. Well, the cool thing was in the which one was it? It was versus Avengers. I also felt a little let down, like it was trying too hard for its humor, but at least it had Godzilla fighting Fin Fang Foom, which just as an idea is cool. And it also had Jet Jaguar show up, the gigantic robot, and I like that too. But I think I've had enough Godzilla Marvel. This is like in the 90s when all of a sudden Marvel and DC were just doing crossover after crossover after crossover together, and it burned you out. I think I'm a little burned out of Godzilla Marvel, and I love both things, but it's, you keep giving me a delicious slice of pizza. Eventually I'm going to get full. I would recommend this, Dredd the Hall H. Hall H, of course, is the biggest hall at San Diego Comic-Con, and it's just a series of like actual problems with big conventions mixed with like a supernatural horror idea. Like a guy that just talks too long when he's been given the last question of the panel, and he just talks and talks and talks. And I was like, yeah, that's pretty awkward for everybody to be in attendance for and sit through, when someone just talks way too much about their own experience and like gives a big statement before they get to a question. There's stories like a couple that just like everywhere they go, there's a line, a line to get into anything. And they finally find a place just outside of the convention hall that has no line. And they think it's maybe an experience, a pop-up, but it's really like, a Hades trying to capture their souls in a game, things like that. There's one towards the end that has an actual zombie enter Comic-Con, but everybody thinks it's cosplay for the longest time. I like that one quite a bit. And they're specifically, because this is an Image comic, everyone says that they're waiting for the Walking Dead panel, and they think that he's just in costume. So that was fun. That was honestly fun. This one is $6.99, pretty big. It's also a cardstock cover. Is it exceptional? No, and it doesn't lean too much into the horror. It's more like scary ideas with usually sort of a funny or ironic twist, but that's good enough. Yeah, in fact, if it was super violent, it might be a turnoff. Because I don't want to see like my fellow comic book lovers always just getting torn apart. There's some bad stuff that happens, but not every single time. It's very good timing, and I'm sure that's very much intentional. Nobody crapped on the floor in this. That was New York Comic Con, not San Diego. San Diego, I think the worst thing was that one year where one guy stabbed the other guy in the eye with a pencil. Oof, grisly. Ugh. I haven't seen a distillery book in a while, but I have been reading The Blood Brothers' Mother, which is a Western. And as it turns out, it's a very tragic one. I will say, this artwork by Eduardo Risso is gorgeous. I really like it. I really like it. I've always liked Eduardo Risso, but a lot of the times when he does a book, like say recently, he did Sergeant Rock versus the Army of the Dead. But he also did a crime book, 100 Bullets. And he uses very thick spotted blacks. And in this, he instead really does render it with color. Like this would normally be like all black, I think, if he was doing a traditional comic page and letting somebody else color it. Just some gorgeous color schemes that feel Western. At first, when I picked this up, because the last issue hadn't come out in a while, I could not really remember the exact story and where it left off. By about halfway through, it didn't matter. I was caught up with what was important, and it won me over, in other words. So I started reading it, and I was like going, okay, well, I like the art, but I don't remember the story. It's been too long. It's been many months since the last issue came out. This is frustrating. But I kept reading it, and it got good. So it won me over. Dark ending, but that's the kind of book it was. That's the kind of book it was. I do recommend it. I do. And it would probably be more satisfying to read all 4 issues all at once. Just know that it is a sad story. It is about, 3 very young boys trying to find their mother and really realizing that their mother is kind of a criminal, an outlaw, and not the best person in the world. Dude, there are some scenes in this where I swear it feels a bit Mobius-esque. Mobius working on Blueberry. I want to specifically, point out like a panel like that. There's a couple others, but like sometimes the way he draws a cowboy, I'm just like, yeah, there's a little bit of Blueberry in that. A little bit. I would say Mobius did a little bit more intricate backgrounds. That was just his way. It's pretty darn good. Great art. Is there anything else that I'll talk about? I will say that I liked what the first issue of The World to Come was doing, but I felt like this one was too depressing. It does explain why Black Panther has a white son that's trying to claim the throne in the future. And look, it's really nothing too much more complex than adopted son that's connected to Everett Ross, which was he was a really important character in Christopher Priest's Marvel Knights Black Panther run. I almost feel like you kind of would have to have read that run to get the emotional connections of what happens with Everett Ross in this story. This is a very Everett Ross focused story. It wasn't really for me. I will say though that some of the dialogue from Everett Ross is pretty funny. Some of what happens to him is kind of funny, but it's also sort of a depressing future. So like the funny stuff didn't completely feel right tonally. The artwork by Quesada is really impressive. It's really, really good. Quesada continues to evolve as an artist. That does not look like the same stuff that he was putting out in the early 90s with like Ash or Azrael. It's really interesting. Everything else I read this week was like very good. Red Coat, one of the best issues yet. Great adventure, helps make Simon Pure a little more likable. Ninja Turtles seems to imply that the villain they're going up against might have a little bit of supernatural ability to talk people into things, but I like the idea of seeing the Turtles in court. G.I. Joe actually made me care about villains like Major Blood and Raptor, and sets up people like Destro and Baroness as incredibly dangerous. Battle Beast just continues to be fun. And I think that the person having the most fun might be Ryan Otley, because this is some of the most intricate, detailed artwork I've seen by him in years. I really like that. It's a fight comic. It's a sword and sorcery type comic, but set in a sci-fi setting as compared to, medieval times or anything previous. It's good. And then Ultimate X-Men finally gets some of our heroes together and working as a team, plus getting main characters like Hisako out of the clutches of the Shadow King and coming back into the story. She's sort of been our viewpoint character for a while, and then she had to step away when the bad guys captured her. Is the artwork sometimes a little more simple in the panel to panel than it is on what Peach renders for covers? Yes, but it's good storytelling. It really is. And it's satisfying to see the heroes act like superheroes and act like a team. It feels earned that they've gotten to this point. And they're still underdogs because they're not like battle hardened or anything. It's really cool. So some good comics for sure that came out this week. No question. But my pick for book of the week, I'll just go with this. My pick for book of the week is easily Absolute Batman number 10. Body Horror Batman. This is my favorite issue of the series so far, which I don't say lightly. I've been enjoying this book. This particular book shows how Batman is dangerous even when it looks like he's been completely broken and had everything stripped away from him. No, he is going to find a way to turn his actual body into a weapon. Just takes things so extreme, so much further than anyone else would go. But that indomitable willpower makes him really likable. It's a really cool book. So, how about I do a little drawing, and we'll just talk about anything comic booky or nerdy at this point. I'm just going to try to relatively quickly ink another Fast and Furious Chick Tract comic. I'll letter it last so that the joke can come later. Read it today, loved it, metal. I love it when people hit the like button. That means a lot to me. Thank you. Yeah, a little bit. Not tons and tons, but yeah, I'd done some video editing before. My background had always been in marketing, and while my career kept pushing me more to the management side of projects, I was still working usually at companies that needed me to still fill the role of using various Adobe products. I was always using InDesign, Photoshop, and Premiere. So yeah, I had a little, but I've learned more as I've been doing the show. Gavin, always nice to have you here. I assume you'll be in San Diego this week, and you've got so many big comics coming out these days. Been really impressive. Can't wait, by the way, to get your Kickstarter horror book. I supported that one. Let's see. Battle Beast number 1 did feel like a forgotten comic from childhood, made you feel like a kid with toys. I think that's a very accurate way to describe it. Sure. I got tickets to go to New York Comic Con on Saturday and Sunday this year. In the past, I've always only gotten a ticket for one day, but this past year, Chrissy wasn't feeling well at the last minute, and I went by myself. And so, I went Saturday and I had a good time, but I didn't see everybody that I wanted to. So I reached out to Jim Mafood and was like, any chance you've got another pass because you've got a table? And he did. And he was able to get me in on Sunday. And I had a good time. So I'm going to do it for 2 days this year. Not this year. Okay. It's in the plans for 2026. I got to go next year. I got to go to San Diego. It was my birthday yesterday, and it's still my birthday in comic tropes time. Happy birthday. Happy birthday. My birthday's coming up in 2 weeks? Yeah, about two weeks. I think it's 2 weeks and 2 days, technically. I'm going to take off my glasses and hunch over and just mess around with a brush pen a little bit. But I am listening. I will keep poking my head up every once in a while to see what folks are talking about. I'm trying to think what kind of newer comic books or comic book media have come out lately. We already talked about Superman quite a bit last week. I'm excited to see Fantastic Four. I'm not going to lie. I am a fan of Fantastic Four, so I am looking forward to that. I hope it's good. Ooh, a super chat. Thank you, Master Shake. You're tasked to write Crisis on Infinite Cobra Islands to sync the G.I. Joe comic book and cartoon storylines. What's the plot and how does it involve Cold Slither? That's the job I'm hired for, whether I like it or not. I would start it in the cartoon because that was the way more sci-fi world. And I would say that Destro is trying to create a new version of Cold Slither. Of course, Cobra Commander is like, we need to use more power, Destro. And he turns up the power too much, and it rips a hole in the fabric of space-time. And that's what starts crossing over the universes. And let's just say that the G.I. Joes of the comic book world are a lot more badass than the cartoons. But we get, by the end, when it gets all resolved, there's some big stuff taken from the cartoons. Shipwreck is definitely a big player. Yeah, that's what happens. Chicago Science Museum has a super cool Spider-Man exhibit I recommend if it travels near anyone. It has original art and movie props on top of history of the character. That does sound like fun. The Guardians of the Galaxy game is very good. I played that one. I was really impressed with it. Yep. So just to give you an idea, this what would I call it? Not issue, but this comic strip for Fast Tracks is Dominic Toretto taking his 1970 Dodge Charger to be appraised at a used car dealership, an unnamed used car dealership, and seeing what his reaction is to what they would offer on his beloved 1970s Charger. Because if you think about it, just because Dom loves it and can drive it really well, if you actually think about all the things it's gone through, that car would probably not be worth a whole lot to anyone other than Dom. And then I think I'll do one more of these next week and then maybe end it there. We'll do other actual comic book drawings.
You can't put a price on family.
Oh yeah, Strange New Worlds. I watched that. I'm a Star Trek fan, and Strange New Worlds is one of my favorite takes on it. And the first 2 episodes I liked quite a bit. So that was nice. I couldn't believe it. It's been a notch over 2 years since the last season. That is crazy. That's way too long. But it's good. Is anybody in here going to San Diego Comic-Con? I am not. I've actually never been to San Diego Comic-Con, believe it or not. Yeah. So I feel like I have like an obligation to go there at least once to experience it, but never done it before. Don't live anywhere near it. I went to 93. Wow, 93. Was Jack Kirby still alive there? I've never been. Looks cool. Neither have I. Next year will be my first time. Wow. That's interesting. I know you haven't been doing comics that many years, but yeah, I guess I tend to think like a lot of comic book artists and writers end up there. I'd love to go. Travel to the US isn't a good idea right now. I get that. I'm sorry. Wish I could. I'm broke as shit. Yeah, unfortunately, I really am too. Without like getting into anything too specific, it's just that, Chrissy got laid off, and we also had to get her parents a car last week, and that kind of wiped me out. Like we'll be okay, and I'll build it back, but yeah, just like no money right now, so no travel plans at all. Other than October, I should be in good shape, but yeah, right now I've got like. Technically, I'd be. If you look at my finances, I'm in debt, and that's never a fun place to be. But I don't need to tell anyone else that we're all dealing with the same stuff these days. We're all dealing with those pressures, and it's not that big a deal. I'm not too worried about it, but it is frustrating. I miss some stuff. I went from 99 to 2019, and I haven't been back since. That's a lot, though. That's a lot. 20 years of it? Let's see. If they do make the Jimmy Olsen TV show and introduce Darkseid there, I mean, in a way, it wouldn't be completely unfair since we're dealing with, Jack Kirby obviously did a pretty important run on Jimmy Olsen at the same time that he introduced the new gods and everything. I'd be up for a Jimmy Olsen movie at this point. And I would also be up for a Mr. Terrific movie. Oh, let me plug something. By tonight, I should have uploaded the Patreon exclusive Comic Tropes episode for July. I always give one exclusive episode to my supporters on Patreon. And this month they asked me to do something on Mr. Terrific. So that's what it will be about, is just, the history of Mr. Terrific. That should be up tonight. Oh, I know another thing to talk about. Last month's exclusive was on the Fantastic Four Superman crossover. Well, I'll be talking about it again because the YouTube comic show Owen Likes Comics invited me on to also talk about it, and he's done an edit, and that should be up in a day or two, I think. But yeah, there was a 90s. I talked earlier about like crossover stuff. Well, in the 90s, Marvel and DC went bonkers with them, and one of them that they did was Fantastic Four Superman, and we have a long conversation. I mean, it might be close to an hour. I don't know what it will edit down to, but we have a lot of different angles to talk about that stuff on. Mr. Terrific versus Fantastic Four, Battle of the Superlatives. That mural in the Hall of Justice really has me hoping there'll be something JSA related eventually. Yeah, I've been to that building. If you guys have seen Superman, there's a building that the Justice Gang is in. And it looks, if you've ever seen the Super Friends cartoon, like the Hall of Justice. Well, the Hall of Justice was based on a real building in, is it Cincinnati? It's at least close to there. And when Tony Moore, the artist in Walking Dead, and now this new cover for Oni's EC Comics and stuff, when he had his wedding, he had the reception at that building. And there's this huge mural around the central area. And, or wait, maybe he might have had it at No, he had it at a natural history museum, which was nearby, and I just drove to that to that building. Excuse me, I'm confusing things. It was a long time ago. But there's a huge mural there of like American history with like, farmers and cowboys and Indians and all this stuff. And they redid it for the movie to be, if you look at it closely in the background of the Justice Gang scenes, they're all Justice Society members. There's Wildcat and Jay Garrick and Alan Scott and like all these old superheroes. It would be really interesting to see if they did something with the JSA at some point. And of course, I can understand why you would be plugged into that. Gavin has recently been drawing some JSA comics and doing some really, really interesting stuff with his art in terms of, and this is so nerdy. When I was looking at some of these pages at, what was it, Emerald City Comic Con, maybe? He's doing something with his feathering that I just really like the technique. And like, it's something that I really like think about here and there when I'm like doing these sort of drawings is like, oh, I really like the way Gavin feathered that. What was the most random U.S. city town you've been to? I don't know. Is there... When I was in college down in New Orleans, sometimes we went to some places like, a little further north of New Orleans that are just like, you're surprised they're even classified as towns because they just feel like, a forest with like one business in it. Like I did that for things like, inner tube rafting, not rafting, but like, lazy rivers and stuff. Like there were some pretty weird towns like that. Issue 8 at ECC. Yes, you should see the new round of JSA issues I'm doing. I'm excited to see them, man. I'm really impressed with your work. I love that you're pushing yourself to try lots of tiny little things when you're working on a monthly deadline. It's not easy. We stand a feathering. Wait, what? What did I miss? Excuse me. When I was saying like, I was talking more about like a hatching thing that I saw Gavin doing that I feel like I've seen by guys like Stuart Immonen or something. And, you just sort of have like, a spotted black area like this. And only when it's appropriate or something, you can't do this for like every texture or something. But, and I can't do it justice, but, he'd like have some really pleasing lines that feathered out and then like a little bit of some cross hatching ones. And, I'm not even really showing you. Sorry, I'm not even zoomed in enough. But it was just really pretty. It was just really pretty. In Alberta, we have towns that are just a gas station and cafe, just somewhere that farmers can sit and drink coffee. I kind of like that stuff, though. I'm really kind of fanboying over Gavin. I better turn it down a notch because I'm gassing him up too much. Gavin, don't. I'm just, yeah, great. You're an amazing artist and you're a nice person, but you know what? You also smell like nutria, buddy. You smell. I'm kidding. I grew up in a town of 500 people. Wow, that is a small town. I used to think I grew up in a small town, and it was because, I didn't have the biggest graduating class in high school. It was about 100 people, and that's pretty small. But the town itself, I think, had about 18,000 residents, so it wasn't like necessarily a small town. It was a smaller town. But like there was a good amount of land to it, so you could still have a lot of people. I miss my town, but I plan, my current plan is go to New York Comic Con in October and take about a week to visit my family up in Massachusetts between the convention, and I've got a friend getting married in New York the week before Comic-Con. So that's my plan. That's my plan. You graduated with over 500. You grew up in a bigger... Did you like, was it New Orleans proper? Like one of like the PS 182s or something like that? It's never too hard to draw a car if you're allowed to draw the car first and draw everything else around it in a way. If you need to draw the perspective of a city or something and then draw the car within it, that's hard. But if you're allowed to like be a little more vague on the background, you can basically use reference. And that's exactly what I've done here. I've literally looked at a 1970 Dodge Charger with the shotgun air intake system, and that's all I did. And then I drew like the guy around it and wasn't planning on drawing much in terms of background. So there are ways to make, sometimes you can make things easy. In the UK, we have villages. A village is like 5 houses and a pub. That sounds nice. Graduating class about 700. That's a lot. Suburbs, got it. Possibly 2 pubs. They opened up a 3rd high school in town to siphon to overflow. Yeah, that is kind of big, Gavin. That's interesting. That was just never really an issue. In fact, I had a big high school building because I think that there had been previous years where the town was bigger and, just my sort of generation was a little smaller. But it meant that like that there were unused rooms and stuff in that high school. There was actually a whole second cafeteria that we really didn't use. There was a whole second cafeteria that was unused. Was just sort of like it could be there for like events, but it wasn't really used. Oh, see, so my sister graduated the same high school 3 years later than me, and she says she had about 150. So I think mine was just like the lowest it sort of had gone for some reason. It was just coincidence, but like mine was lower because I talked to people that were older than me, and I feel like it wasn't abnormal to have had graduating classes closer to 200 or so, and my sister says hers is about 150. Mine just happened to be smaller. Whoa, 15 to 20 people. Man, you must know each other pretty damn well at that point. Pretty damn well. 500 to 600. I don't know how many people there were when I graduated college. That was a lot. I mean, just to be clear, though, at that point, I should say university, because different colleges within the university would have their own graduations. I graduated from the business school, which was still like a hell of a lot of people, but that's only because, people in different majors were having their own graduations separately. Wow, we're really talking about graduation stuff a lot. People remember grads. People remember dads, Father's Day, graduation happens at the same time. So people remember the grads and the dads. The problem, in my opinion, is that they don't remember the Vlads. Nobody remembers the Vlads. Where's the day for the Vlads? I don't know. Thank you, Mandela Butterfly. I appreciate the support very, very much. So after we get Fantastic Four this week, what's the next comic book movie after that? Like, then we, I guess, jump all the way to 2026, right? Or is there anything coming out, the end of the year in like November or December? I can't think of anything right now. Or is there like a show? Well, that Lanterns TV show might be coming. And Peacemaker. Lantern and Peacemaker are both coming at some point. But I can't really think of what the next Marvel thing is after Fantastic Four. It must be a ways out. That's okay. I get more excited about the comic books themselves anyway. That's my favorite. TV Peacemaker, right? Yeah, the Red Sonja movie. Lanterns has a lot of potential. I'm curious what it does. That's right. They're filming the next Spider-Man. That's a good point. Criminal. I'll be excited for Criminal. I'll be damn excited for Criminal. That's the kind of thing I was trying to think of, is like, something outside of just Marvel and DC. That I'm excited for, because I love Criminal. I love anything Brubaker and Phillips do together. Boy, are they one of my favorite teams. So good. So consistent. It's nice when you can find like a creative partnership that lasts as long as that, where you're like, wow, they get each other. They bring out the best in each other type thing. I like thinking about that connection. I like it when bands are together for a really long time with like the same lineup. I don't know. I just like it. I think I'm able to do another Comic Tropes episode this week, as long as it's going to be more of a story time thing where I'm just telling a behind the scenes comic book story, as compared to using tons and tons of footage, because I won't have time to edit that. But if people are okay with me, I'm going to try to make it and put it out and see if people are okay with it. But I'm going to like sort of just tell a story about comics. And I've done that once or twice before and it's gone over okay. That's what I'm going to try to do for something about Fantastic Four, but we'll see. That's what I'm aiming for this week. Did you buy Post Malone's Big Rig or not interested? I was talking about it when I did the reviews. I did buy it. I didn't get my physical copy. It is scheduled to arrive today, but it didn't arrive before the show. I checked my mail right before. But I did also get sent a digital version for buying it, and I read the digital version because I bought it off of the Vault website. I went ahead in this case and got the Daniel Warren Johnson foil cover because I'm just a nerd for Daniel Warren Johnson. I don't do that a whole lot. Yeah. So anyway, you could get a good amount of Comic Tropes. Like if you're a supporter, for instance, on the Patreon, you're going to get my Mr. Terrific episode. If you watch Owen Likes Comics, you're going to get my take on Fantastic Four Superman crossover, and I'm doing a Fantastic Four Storytime episode. So I'm trying to get all three of those out this week, like in the next four days, maybe get like those three things up. And then I want to try to do an episode on the anniversary of Metamorpho about Ramona Fradon. I don't know if I can do all of that in time. It's a lot, but I feel like that's what I need to do because, yeah, like if you're going to monetize, reviewing comics and stuff, there's very little, I've said this before, there's very little YouTube ad revenue these days. So you kind of have to pump out a pretty good amount of material. And I feel like I've just sort of been trying to figure out a way to get it all done fast enough. It's been tough. I want to do tons, but it takes a lot out of me. It's hard to plan it all out. And I want to do it the way I typically do it, where it's, a little bit of me on camera talking to people so that there's like a personal connection. It doesn't feel like some of these weird AI videos you see on YouTube these days, as well as like, a good amount of imagery from the comics to sort of help explain my arguments. It's a good book. I hope you like it. I thought Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees was quite good. And I was very impressed with the new series first issue, Rite of Spring. I was very impressed. Obviously I hinted at some, or, talked in the news about things that publishers have hinted could be their big announcements at Comic-Con. starting in a couple days. But I am curious. There's always a few big pieces of news that people keep quiet and end up being a surprise. And so next episode, next Monday, should probably have some really cool pieces of news. There's usually a bunch of new stuff that gets announced at San Diego Comic-Con. And I'm looking forward to riffing on that and talking about implications of whatever gets announced, not just in terms of comics, but in terms of like what publishers or distributors are doing, you know, what artists are doing with crowdfunding campaigns, for instance. Like it could be all sorts of stuff, not just, hey, we're doing a new X-Men book. I'm really excited to see what comes out. This particular episode is, this is AI. Absolutely it is. I had given up on Dexter shortly after the season with the Trinity Killer, which I liked. And then I just felt like the show was sort of losing its way. So I never finished it. But I've heard good things about like the return. It's nice that other people out there remember the Flads. That's really nice to hear. Did you guys hear that meow a second ago? Jack just came down and just really quickly went, "Meow." Then he disappeared. I took him on a short walk outside today when I went to get the mail. Sometimes Jack will hang out right by the front door when I go to it. And if he hangs out there for a certain amount of time, I get the vibe that he wants to go for a walk. So he's got a harness and I'll put him in it and take him to the mailbox and he gets excited. There he is. Hey, buddy, you want to come over here? No, you're going to climb up and probably knock some stuff over instead. Great. That's good too. The second Predator Badlands came out. Oh, that's cool. I've been very impressed with what, is it Dan Trachtenberg? Something like that has been doing with Predator. I hope that the movie that's coming out is good. Yeah, you're talking about the trailer, I know. Hi. Do you want to come over and talk to everybody? Or no? Good points, Jack. You're a smarty. Should I ask for a new kitten for my birthday since these cats like Chrissy so much and I should have like one that likes hanging out with me, like actually hanging out? What do you think? Should I get a kitten? I won't get another kitten. 2 is probably plenty. But I do like cats. You know, I'm starting to suspect, I've always sort of wanted a dog, but I might be allergic a little bit. I know I'm not super bad, but there's a dog I've been encountering lately, and I found myself sort of sneezing. So I'm really nervous that I'm allergic. I'm not 100% sure if it's the dog or if it's, the environment I'm in, like pollen or something. But I'm sort of suspecting it could be the dog. And I'm disappointed if that's the case. But I don't know for sure. My cat is responding to yours. That's very funny. I like that. Alien Earth does look more promising than I even suspected. How come Lily is more camera shy? I don't think it's about the camera. I think she really likes hanging out with Chrissy. She really loves Chrissy. And Jack does too, but Jack explores a tiny bit more than she does. So that's all it is. get a corgi. It could be fun. Maybe someday. Maybe. As we go on, we remember all the times we had together, and as our lives change, come whatever, we will still be friends forever. That sounds like a song, but I'm not picking up on what it is. Did anyone bother to go see, what is that movie that looks like garbage? I Know What You Did Last Summer. Did anyone risk it all? I almost for a minute was going to go, and then I was like, what am I thinking? It's like, no, it's not going to be good. I go, maybe on streaming, but do not waste your time like that, Christopher. Finally, I have made one. Anything crazy going on in your life? Hope you're doing well health-wise. I would say the craziest thing is just, I've been dealing with adhesive capsulitis, maybe more simply called frozen shoulder here. Very painful in my right shoulder, very painful. But it's generally been getting better, which I'm grateful for. A lot of days I'm pretty good. I take a little aspirin here or there just to like take the edge off, but that's all I need to do a lot of days. And that's good. But a couple days ago, I was leaving work and I was getting an alert that one of my tires was a little bit low on air. Well, I work, at a place that sells cars, and I could just use the air hose there. And it's up on the ceiling, and it's like retractable. You pull out the hose, kind of like what are those called? The on a window, the blind, are they called blinds? Where you just like tug it and it springs up. It's kind of like that. I feel like that's not the right word. Anyway, so I pull this air hose, put in the air, car's fine. I go to let it retract, and my right arm, every once in a while, just the strength just gives out. Like, just all of a sudden I didn't have strength. And so I couldn't hold it, and it wants to retract fast. Within that same moment, just like the friction of having my arm around the hose, yanked it really hard and really fast to the side. Like, with this arm, for instance, I can like tilt it like that, like anyone could. Like this is straight up. I can sort of, but with this arm, I can't even get it straight, right? Like this is as straight as I can make it, like versus this. I can't, it just won't do it right now. Even if you physically push it, it won't do it. But so imagine it getting yanked in that direction. Ooh, it was one of the most painful things I have felt in a while. I was so embarrassed because I let out a scream. I was just so embarrassed that I did that. And it got better after, like, relatively quickly, but it hurt. Oh, I was so embarrassed to like scream in public. I had a couple coworkers like, "Oh, can we help? Can we get you water?" I'm like, "Ha ha ha! I'm okay. Please leave me alone. Ha ha! Nothing to see here." Anyway, but overall, I'd say that like my health is pretty good. I just dealing with one issue, and everybody's always got some sort of an issue, right? I mean, yeah. I hope none of you have to deal with anything like that. I will say that. What are people saying? Shade? Yeah, maybe that's what it's called. Yeah. Yeah, I know. It's like that's insane. Not surgery. I don't need surgery, but what I'll probably get is when I see orthopedics, they'll probably give me a shot of cortisone. I've had this once before in my life, and that's what helped last time. It's basically steroids, but to get it to work properly and get at those, sort of capillaries and stuff all around your shoulder, what they need to do, this is the tough part. They have to push the joint apart. Okay. So they put a bunch of needles in your arm with just fluid, and they just inject your shoulder with fluid, and it pushes like the ball out of the joint. It pushes it apart. And all I can say is, it probably is only pushing it apart, like, maybe half an inch or something. I don't really know, but it feels like it's being just like ripped all the way out. It's very intense. It's worth it because that's what you got to do. And it doesn't take that long, but they're basically like, you need to take as much of this as possible because we need to pull it out as far as possible. So like, just as much as you can handle, keep talking to us. We're going to push it out. And then, so they numb like some of the muscle, but you still really feel it. You really feel it. I'm sure it isn't. I'm just making up a number because I have no idea what it is. It feels like it's a ton. And then once they've got it separated, they take some pretty big long needles, but at this point you don't care. And that's got the cortisone in it, the steroid, and they put that like as close as they can into like the center of the joint. And they're doing it with like not in like an x-ray, but maybe like an ultrasound or something like that. I can't quite remember. It's probably ultrasound, right? Yeah, they numb you, but it doesn't like really help that much. It really didn't. Anyway, it's what it is. It's somewhat temporary. I mean, it really made a huge difference for me when I did it. But the thing is, you really can't do it again and again because those steroids will eat away at like the muscle if you take a bunch of it. You really can't do it twice within 6 months or anything like that. Yeah, I guess it's live X-ray. This is what my sister does and knows for a living, and I just don't know this stuff. She's a rad tech, so she knows this stuff, and I don't. I just remember, but it was a few years ago that I did this, so I don't really remember all the details anymore. My sister got a big brain. She one of them big brains. Proud of you, Jeans. And I miss you. Thank you for watching this show whenever you can. It means a lot to me, just knowing that my sister's out there. It's fun. So when you think about Dom Toretto's Charger here, what you got to acknowledge is that at this point, there have been a lot of Fast and Furious movies. And it's his iconic car from the first one, which means they bring it back. But here's the problem. You got to do something dramatic. That means his Charger has been completely demolished in a variety of stunts over the years. Not every movie, but a bunch of them. And he's, a mechanic, so he's rebuilt it. But anyone out there that has ever had a car in an accident knows that if the frame gets damaged, that really impacts the value of a car. And Dom's Charger has been in something like 5 to 6 huge accidents and like gets rebuilt by the next movie. It would be such a garbage car by then. Hey, it's Bronze Age Nerd. He's got a channel, and he and Big B McFly, the comic book guy, do a show about comics at 8 p.m. Pacific, so 30 minutes or so. So you don't have an accelerated healing factor like Wolverine? What a crock. I know. I pretend like I'm some superhero, don't I? Hope you have a good show tonight. Vin Diesel was also the Iron Giant. That's true, he was. His Charger is the ship of Theseus. So that's my sort of joke here, is that I'm going to have an appraiser being like, sir, this vehicle seems to have been in 2 or 3 very serious accidents, and he's going to be like,
5,
but 2 or 3 of them were to save the world. I'm like, yeah, we can offer you $500, sir. Probably. And if it's not a movie crossover, we might find out at Comic-Con this weekend if they're doing a TV cartoon show. Because I think that they're going to do an Energon Universe style cartoon show. And a big charity art stream this Saturday at 2 p.m. Oh, okay. Are you doing some more stuff for Mission 22 for veterans? I bet he is. That's a thing that he does. He likes doing nice things for people, that Bronze Age nerd. A cartoon show would be better than another movie. I think so. I think it's a little more budget conscious for one thing. Yeah. It's a little weird how kids today aren't really into toys the same way that my generation were. They're just not really. They like them. They're not as into them as my generation was. Fast and Furious versus Herbie the Love Bug. Community art stream, all money going to support our vets with Mission 22. Well, there you go. Channel is Bronze Age Nerd. Saturday, he'll have an art stream where you can get some art and it's going to a good cause. You might want to check that out. Keep that in mind. Oh my God. Tron Ares does look fun, but I agree. Like, I am not a fan of Jared Leto. He's a creep, and I don't love that he's the face of that. I love Lego. I like that Lego stuff. They're very excited for new toys, but they don't take up as big a part of their play, so they get less attached. And I think that makes some sense. You know, I came up in a generation where the toys all got shows. And I think that helped make action figures and similar type play more popular than it had been even in previous generations, because we were basing it on what we knew. And what do kids know these days? It's more apps and video games and stuff. And I think you even see toys based on video games and meme culture and stuff a little bit more, but they don't get as much into the collecting aspect at that point. Whereas we, I'm just saying, I grew up with G.I. Joe and Transformers, and they would just keep introducing new characters. And it's like, we wanted them all. We liked them all. Some stuff came out about him that just felt too, yeah, I'm trying not to reference it directly, but yeah, he's not great. I did hear some of the Nine Inch Nails music, and I liked it. I'll create a toy line. Let's get some trash movie toys made. Let's get some Infotron plushes made, right? Oh, hi. You caught me being a robot that knows a lot about comics. Speaking of that, let's talk about how bad Civil War 2 was. Corridor Crew nailed the new Tron movie. Pixels only, it's serious. That's right, they did say that. Pixels, but serious. What's the difference between these two? There's no difference. Tron is weird. It's like it is a cool concept and stuff, and it has always looked good, the previous versions, but it's like the mythology just doesn't quite connect the way some other big sci-fi ideas have. And I don't know what that disconnect is, because I like Tron, but I don't know if I quite love Tron, and I don't know why. I loved the Daft Punk music in the last one, and there was also a animated show set in, the artificial world, and I liked that show. It was quite cool. Definitely strong visuals for it. I can say that I totally loved the Tron Legacy soundtrack. I did too. It was badass. It was really good. I enjoyed Tron Legacy or whatever. Yeah, that's what we were just talking about. Tron Uprising. Yes, Tron Uprising was the animated show. Thank you for reminding me. It was good. Probably a little hard to find now. I wonder if it's on Disney Plus. It should be, especially if they're trying to like get people, potentially excited for more Tron. I think that Disney Shanghai has a Tron ride. I'm pretty sure that that's the only Disney park that has a Tron-related ride. It's funny to think that that's a Disney property. It doesn't always feel super Disney, but it is Disney. Maybe someday Jeff Bridges' character from Tron will meet a Disney mermaid and marry her. Not a Disney princess, a Disney mermaid. It is on Disney Plus, folks. It's pretty good, and you don't need to know the rest of the Tron mythology. Tron Uprising is kind of its own thing, but it's pretty cool. A black hole remake, yeah. What else is sort of like a Disney movie that you don't necessarily think of as a Disney movie? Because there was always that like era of like Touchstone that they had. I don't know what else. Like the Apple Dumpling Gang or things like that. Early Kurt Russell teen movies. Those are all like things that Disney made back in the day. Was Darby O'Gill and the Little People a Disney movie? I can't remember. It feels like it could have been. I challenge you to Tron Light Cycles. Well, I would die very quickly in those. I would die very quickly, just to be clear. I don't even know if that's a joke or if that's real. The Cat from Outer Space. That sounds real. Yeah, I don't think that they'll reference it at all. I don't think enough people saw Tron Legacy that like, the only thing I could possibly see is, sort of a post-credits tease that they'll bring those characters in. If Tron Ares does well enough, then they'll take some of their other mythology, but I think that they'll mostly leave it untouched. Darby O'Gill and the Little People was a Disney one? Thank you. That's Disney. Thanks, guys. The light cycles and like the way they've got like those hard light walls behind them and how fast they go, that would kill me. That would kill me. Yeah, I agree. I'd seen it when it came out, and just the ideas and the graphics were enough to carry it a lot of the way. And now that's not as unique, and like you try to watch it and it feels very slow. And I'll even say that like while I liked Tron Legacy, I personally feel that it drags a lot in the middle. Like after, I can't even remember the name of the main character in there, like something like Jake or something. Once he gets to that like computer world and he has like a tournament and then he escapes, and then there's just, oh my God, there's so much talking and this, that, and the other. And it really slows down for me. But it looks good. It does look good. I'm not going to say that it doesn't look good. Oh, I got my day job the next 2 days, and I'm trying to do so much content for the show. I am just going to have to sacrifice sleep. So long, sleep. It was nice knowing you for a little while there. That said, I am kind of excited about the topics and the episode ideas that I have in mind. So that carries a lot of weight, that makes a difference between like how excited you can get about creating stuff. Oh, I should ask this for everybody. What comics have you been getting excited about lately? Hopefully new, but even if it's just new to you, just always curious for recommendations, stuff that might not be on my radar, but stuff that people love. Always curious about that stuff. And I'll poke my head up in a sec, just obviously a little focused on some fine brush strokes. Not that it needs to look pretty. I'm doing this more as a comic strip. I should just keep moving at a good pace. Doesn't have to be the prettiest art that I've done, just has to be serviceable to the joke, to the punchline. All right, let's see what I'm missing. Dr. Afra. I believe my friend EJ Sue is doing covers for that these days. Concrete. Oh, man. You know what? That would be a fun one to do an episode on. I think that Concrete is underrated, that people are forgetting about it. Rook, Exodus, and Sacrificers coming back in October. Always look forward to Rick Remender stuff. Your radar is much wider bandwidth than mine. I discovered something you usually reviewed it months earlier. I get it. I'm just trying to take in a lot, and I miss stuff. I do. Imperial. I liked issue 1 of Imperial, but I'm reading so much that I didn't stick with issue 2. Most Ghost Machine is pretty solid. I agree. What else? Nothing different from what you had in your pile, but I'm going to say TMNT IDW series right now. I like the latest issue quite a bit. I'm pulling an all-nighter to finish my portfolio in time for SDCC. Going to schedule some portfolio reviews with the publishers there. Great. Good luck, Hayden. That's intense. That's intense. Did you say punchline? Not the DC character. There's going to be a joke in this. Current run of Savage Dragon is great. Each new issue focuses on one of Malcolm Dragon's kids. So far, Amy and Jackson both had solo adventures. I got to get caught up on that someday. Doomed 2099 could be fun. I liked the Doom 2099 book back in the day. Not a comic. Started reading Neuromancer. Is that the one with hero protagonist? Is that the main character in that one, or am I confusing it? Oh, that might be Snow Crash I'm thinking of. Not Neuromancer, sorry. Confusing my Cyberpunk. Oh, man, Killer Be Killed. Badass story. So good. I hope they do reprint Concrete at some point. Also love Concrete. Concrete would be very interesting. Well, there we go. Billy Tucci's She. I loved Concrete back in the day. I got to get caught up. This is way... anyway. Just make sure your portfolio represents as close to what you could do on a regular schedule. It's true. I mean, you want to put your best foot forward. So like, you don't also want to show everything. You want to like put your best foot forward, but it does have to be realistic of what you can do. And if you really want to get work, you know, it can't be splash pages and covers. It really needs to be interior pages so that like people can see what your storytelling skills are. See that you can draw real world environments and expressions on characters, not just muscular bodies and explosions. Yeah, it's tricky. Yeah, Neuromancer is Gibson before Snow Crash, right? Snow Crash was Neil Stevenson. I'm confusing some of my cyberpunk. It's been a long time since I read that stuff. I don't feel like I remember it super well now that I'm thinking of it. And I like cyberpunk. I just haven't read it in so long that I just am drawing a blank on some of it. And I think back to some of like what my art portfolios were going to like conventions and stuff. And I'm so embarrassed, but you know, it's what I could do at the time. And I didn't know any better. And I'm glad I didn't know any better, because otherwise I would have not even shown it and gotten critiques. And I liked getting the critiques. Even if it felt harsh, I really did like getting advice from professional artists. But you can see that I'm slow, not the most exciting artist. I get, you know, that I've got some pretty serious shortcomings for ways to make, you know, a monthly. I couldn't do it, I guess. But I've always been more of a writer than an artist. I just enjoy drawing. I really love drawing. So even if, you know, it isn't art that sells, I'll always draw because I enjoy it. It brings me a lot of pleasure. Oh, hold on. I see a color. Haha. Have you ever done an episode on Richard Corbin? Not specifically. I'm sure I've talked a bit about Corbin because I like Richard Corbin, and I feel like I've definitely talked about him before, but I can't think off the top of my head of what context that would have been in. I know that I haven't done a dedicated episode to Richard Corbin's career and techniques, and it would be fun to do. So that's definitely something I would potentially do. There's so many that I would do, but yeah, I would enjoy doing something like that. Keep on drawing comics. I'll always draw. Chris is on the Frank Miller pace. Yeah, at best. Oh. That's nice of you, Mandela. That's nice. I think every once in a while I can create something like that's an okay sort of like pinup, but that's not the same as being able to do panel to panel storytelling and stuff, you know, like be consistent and come up with good dynamic angles that like really tell the story properly. I respect and feel like I can know some of that stuff. What would I say? It's like, sorry, I'm having a hard time thinking of how I want to phrase this. I'm not coming up with the verbiage that I want, which is very frustrating. But essentially, I'm thinking it's frustrating to know something but not be able to do something, to just have it like, you know, to comprehend something, but to not be able to execute it. That's the kind of thing I'm thinking of, but I can't quite think of how to phrase it, which is actually super frustrating. I think a lot of lay people underestimate the intricacies involved in drawing comics. Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right. Because you might be able to draw certain things quite well. People, maybe even clothes, maybe cars, maybe buildings. You might be able to draw a lot of these things. But knowing how to do it within a storytelling context is a different set of skills. How much detail to do, how much of the environment, and how to have a flow, you know, how to have transition points. There's a lot of really intricate, you're right. And some of it is almost like something you feel more than you can just flat out know. Dang mouth words. I'm off to prep for my live show. I'll watch as much of it as I can, Bronze Age. Glad I caught yours. I always enjoy hanging out. Yes. Well, I enjoy your show too, so thank you. There was a kid in middle school who could draw cars very well, but couldn't do anything else. But, you know, if he had that aptitude, he might have been able to then, if he wanted, go into something like architecture or, you know, a specific type of graphic design or concept art. And he might have really been able to build on that, even if he hadn't pushed himself then. It is great to have, like, you know, some core ability. It is. But I also believe everybody can improve their drawing ability, even if they start bad. Yeah. Well, you certainly can learn not just from observation, but from literal trial and error, what works and what doesn't, especially for you, because everybody's going to draw certain things differently. Style, baby. I'm pretty sure I heard Eric Larson put it this way first, with where he was saying style is really just your individual collection of mistakes. And if he took that from somewhere else, that's fine too. I don't know, but I think that that's accurate. And, you know, in other words, your style could have too many mistakes, but your style is your specific collection of mistakes, because otherwise it would just be an accurate drawing, an accurate representation, like very literal. And that can be pleasant, but I think that style helps give us the impression of emotions and feelings and stuff like that. It's really cool. It's a neat way of putting it. Speaking of Neil, I just got the Neil Adams DC Artist Edition the other day. That's very cool. I'm excited to see what these upcoming Act 4 / Image Comics Artist Editions look like. They're doing one for Wallace Wood that could be really, really interesting to look at. At the end of 8th grade, my science teacher brought in a pile of his drawings. He was really good. He drew all sorts of things, but mostly vehicles. Hey, there are some artists out there that is their specialty. There was this guy, Chris Foss, who did so much incredible vehicle design work for sci-fi projects. And that was just, you know, his area. That was what he did well. Yeah. getting close to wrapping this drawing up. I'm going to put in a little dialogue, and then I'll check in with the chat for any sort of closing questions or comments that I should talk about. But yeah, getting close. I hope everybody has a good time that is going to San Diego Comic-Con. I'm a little jealous, but if you're not, like me, I hope you instead get some good time off with your family or friends or both. Do something productive in your personal life. I'm going to be working very hard on YouTube stuff the next several days, but I'm kind of excited to do that. Trying to push myself like I haven't in a while in terms of creating a certain amount of stories. Finished my 9th page of inks in 2 days. On to the last. Then issue 14 is done. Very impressive. Oh, man. Trash movie suggestion, The Conqueror with John Wayne. Reindeer Games and Pixels. Oof. Reviewing bad comedy is tough because it's such a in the eye of the beholder thing, So Pixels is one of the trickier ones to review. But maybe. The Conqueror is where that's the one where John Wayne played Genghis Khan, right? That was yikes. I'm Genghis Khan, damn it, and I'm gonna need all of you to follow my lead. Me, the Mongolian conqueror. Ridiculous. All right. I need to double check on the spelling of something. Okay. Be right with everybody. Let me just do a little bit of lettering. I'll be right with everybody. Let's see. It's spelled Mississippi. Okay, that's it. Thank you. MISSIPPI. Got it. I know this is really bad lettering, and I'm getting quiet, so it's not great video stuff, but just want to try to wrap it up. And then I'll sort of explain the hilarious humor. All right, what do I got here? Okay. So it goes, "Sir, thank you for appraising your vehicle here, but we can't offer much. There is significant frame damage, like it was rebuilt twice." "More like 5 times. Busted it to save the world." And we'll just say this is from Dom's book of what? What's a fast and furious term? Dom's book of drifting. 3:17. Just another story in the world of fast tracks. There we go. All right. We did some comic book news. We did some comic book reviews, and I inked up a super silly comic strip. We'll be back here next Monday with a recap of whatever news we learned from the San Diego Comic-Con. It's one of the bigger ones of the year. There's always some good news that comes out of that. I'm looking forward to recapping it. There should be some good comics. I'm trying to remember what comes out this coming week. Not coming to me. Might be Void Rivals. I think I'll have the physical copy of Post Malone's Big Rig. We could just take a look at that. There should be some good stuff. Some good stuff. I'll do one more of these cartoon strips next week, I think, and then that should probably be enough. Time to do something new. But keep your eye out for a few things. If you support me on Patreon, I will have tonight an exclusive episode about Mr. Terrific, his history, the people that created him, the evolution of that character, some recommendations on good comics with Mr. Terrific. On Owen Likes Comics, you will see me team up with him to talk about Fantastic Four Superman. And I'm doing everything I can to try to get an episode out before the weekend on Comic Tropes about Fantastic Four. Can't promise it, but I think I can do it. I think I can. It was great talking to everybody. If nothing else, I'll see you here next week. Please take a minute to hit like. And if you haven't done it before, hit subscribe. No matter whether you're watching live or on the video on demand. Appreciate that stuff. That really helps. Or leave a comment below. Take care, everybody. You know what I'm going to tell you. It's the same thing I tell you all the time. What do? Well, first, you take a double salute. You earned that. That's my respect to you. And second, just keep reading comics. All right, everybody, be kind. Peace and love. Bye.